We have established a quorum, and if I could get Dr. Sue Kessler to come lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Kessler. I know you're proud of your students that just gave us a wonderful show. They did a great job. We will start with 30 seconds in my district, and if we can start with Ms. Brogue. Oh, Ms. Gentry? Okay.
She's here. Good evening. I just want to share that there will be something called an M3 Summit, Modeling and Maximizing Manhood, scheduled for this Saturday, December 2nd at 9 o'clock. It goes from 9 to 12:30 at IT Crestwell Middle School. It's a whole lot of information here about the purpose, but there will be transportation provided, leaving from Pearl-Cone and another school, Hunter's Lane, starting at some other time. I'll give you more information to Cameo to email out to you guys. But it's open to all the high school students, all the students across the male students in a certain age group across the district. So I'll make sure it gets shared with you all so you can share it as well.
Huh?
So I want to highlight Harpeth Valley Elementary School tonight. They have implemented a new positive behavior supports program. The students earn tickets when they exhibit behaviors tied to their student pledge, including being safe, acting responsibly, acting respectfully, and being kind. Each class has a reward when they meet their monthly ticket goal, and each month one student per class is named the top dog. They're the hound dogs. And then the top dogs receive special certificates, a magnet for the family's car, and their picture is posted in the front lobby. And that's brought some good results for the school. Harpeth Valley also held a college and career week this fall, and community helpers from throughout Bellevue came to talk to the students about how they serve the community. So they had representatives there from NES, Averett Express, the Postal Service, the Police Department, Metro Public Works, and several others. And finally, Harpeth Valley held their Hound Dog Run and Family Night, which allowed the students to run laps to help raise money for the PTO. They had fun events for families, including bounce houses, food, dance performances, face painting, and a silent auction. That's their one big fundraiser of the year, and they raised an astonishing $70,000 from that event of their $85,000 goal. And as a former PTO president myself, that is a pretty hefty sum, I will say. So that is my news from Harpeth Valley.
Yes, on Saturday, December 9th at 9 a.m., Councilman Mike Freeman and I, with our friends Senator Jeff Yarbrough and Representative Jason Powell, will host a holiday reception in South Nashville in the Glencliff neighborhood. It's going to be for the neighbors of Glencliff High School to get a sneak peek of our new athletics complex. It's almost complete except for the track that'll be installed in the spring. $3.5 million project, the centerpiece of which is a brand new alumni pavilion, which has been on the wish list of the neighbors for a long, long time. And we're thrilled to be able to show that off and introduce it to the community, and we'll do a formal dedication in the spring when the track's installed. But again, if you're in the neighborhood, Glencliff High School Athletic Complex, Saturday, December 9th at 9 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Jared Armato is the English teacher at Maplewood High School, and he has a process called Project Lit Community, and several of us have been involved in his gatherings where we have read the same book as the students, and we all get together and talk about this particular book. Project Lit has received $26,700 in grants over the past 6 months, and they continue their efforts to use the money to purchase diverse books and promote a love of reading for the students. The students at Maplewood High School have worked tirelessly to launch this nationwide now grassroots movement that has expanded to more than 50 schools in 20 states. Jared Amato, because of this, won first place and the Penguin Random House Teacher Award for Literacy, and the prize was $10,000. Congratulations, Jared and Maplewood High School.
That's great.
It's a great day to be a Raven. Cane Ridge High School defeated Whitehaven High School this past Friday in the semifinals and will be advancing to the finals, which will be played at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville at 7:00 p.m. on Friday, and we would love to have all of you there present and rooting for Cane Ridge High School to win the state championship. Thank you.
Ms. Pierce?
Sure, and mine's pretty short, but if you're going to go to the Nashville Christmas Parade this weekend, look out for the Hillsborough High School Marching Band because they will be a featured participant.
Ms. Bugs?
I would like to send a special shout out to Mr. Ryan Balk and to our own Hank Clay with the communities and schools. Mr. Balk donated a piano. He emailed me asking if there was any school that I thought that would be willing to accept a piano. We put out an all-call through Community Achieves and Communities and Schools, and Kipp Middle School graciously accepted that last week. So thank you, Mr. Balk and Mr. Clay, for working that out and transporting that. Fall Hamilton will have their partners meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, November 29th at 11:30. So anyone looking to become a volunteer or just hear more about Fall Hamilton, please feel free to join us. Lunch will be served. Also, one of my former babies, Jamarius Parker from Pearl-Cone High School, is a finalist for Mr. Football. So, oh, Jamarius, he was just, hey, Jamarius, congratulations. And the Stratford High School STEAM Night will be held December 5th at 6 o'clock, so please feel free to come out and join us. They will also be hosting a chili cook-off, so they are still accepting entries. I know what I do and what I can't do in my home, so I won't be submitting, but I will be eating for both of us. Thank you.
Okay. All right. To piggyback on Ms. Spearing's Project Lit, that has expanded to DuPont Hadley Middle School, and so tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock we will be discussing one of the books that I previously read when I went to it at Maplewood High School. So I was really excited to learn that that has expanded to one of the middle schools in my district. So we will move on to awards and recognition, our people, and Hunters Lane High School.
Sure. Can Ms. Hoyle and Dr. Kessler, would you please step forward? Hey, Sarah Hoyle has been an outstanding teacher at Hunters Lane High School for the past 5 years of her 8-year career in MNPS. She's earned a level 5 rating every single year, and she has had an individual data, she's earned a level 5 rating every single year that she's had individual data as a chemistry teacher. Because of her leadership as lead chemistry teacher and her prowess as a chemistry teacher, Hunters Lane is ranked 4th in the entire state for chemistry growth.
Thank you.
Ms. Hoyle also teaches IB Biology and IB Environmental Studies, and her students describe her as an enthusiastic teacher who is intrigued by science and loves teenagers. Ms. Hoyle is one of those teachers who is beloved by all of her students, and many staff seek her counsel as a model teacher. In her spare time, Ms. Hoyle and her husband, a math teacher, Jeff Lorenz, teaches scuba diving and lead underwater science expeditions. Mrs. Hoyle exemplifies everything that is wonderful about education. She's a true example of exceeding great expectations. The school board and I are honored to recognize Hunters Lane science teacher Sarah Hoyle.
We will move on to the good news is portion of our agenda, our community, and we'll turn over to my colleague, Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As many of you will recall, in early September in the boardroom, we had a 60th anniversary commemoration of desegregation in Nashville's public schools that was led by the historian David Ewing. After that presentation, Dr. Gentry rightly pointed out that we shouldn't just celebrate that historical moment that evening, but rather turn the rest of the academic year into a series of celebrations about the desegregation of Nashville's public schools in 1957. The board chair has tasked Dr. Gentry and I with coming up with some activities and initiatives which we'll have more information on after the first of the year. But in the meantime, in doing our due diligence, we learned that the Metro Historical Commission, our friends at the Metro Historical Commission, have already been planning some historical markers that are in line with the initiative that we've got underway. So with that, we asked them to drop by tonight and give us a brief presentation about the Historical Commission's Historic Marker Project and talk to us specifically about the markers that are lined up to honor desegregation. So with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to Jessica Reeves from the Historical Commission and her colleague, who I'll let them introduce. Thank you. And I'm passing around some handouts.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Eller. I'm with the Metro Historical Commission, and I'm here to talk with you tonight with Jessica Reeves about our historical marker project. First of all, thank you very much for your time, for allowing us to speak with you tonight and providing the board with this information. I'm going to do a quick program overview and provide details about the marker criteria and the process. Jessica is then going to speak with you about the marker priorities, the timeline for program completion, and markers for specific historical schools. The Metro Historical Commission Marker Program was initiated in 1967 and commemorates significant persons, events, and places in the city's past. It's one of our longest-running and most successful programs, and the first marker was erected at Heaton Station in 1968. By the end of this year, 158 markers will have been placed throughout Davidson County. Between October 2017 and June 2020, the Marker Project will place 73 new markers, including one new marker for each of the Metro Council districts. There are specific criteria and guidelines for the program that we follow, which include significance. This is tied to persons, places, and events that have achieved significance at least 50 years ago, generally speaking. Factual accuracy is required. We do work with the applicant to document the historical significance of all the statements placed on these markers, and a permanent file is kept on hand at the Metro Historical Commission offices for public access. The location, all markers must be placed in a safe and suitable location that provides for access along a public roadway or on public property. There can be some exceptions to this rule, but typically there has to be access provided for installation and maintenance of the marker. As far as the process, our staff and the sponsoring party will draft the text to meet the program's approved design specifications. The text is then submitted to our commission for approval and must adhere to the standards, and we will make corrections if needed to the text. The commission meets on a monthly basis to consider and vote upon these markers, and the proposals are due at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance of their meetings. Upon the commission's approval, typically it takes about 12 weeks to get a marker manufactured and placed, and Metro Public Works does the installation of these markers. Jessica is going to speak with you now on the marker priorities.
Hello, how are you tonight?
Great.
All right, so the process that Caroline just outlined for you, typically we go through with a specific applicant. We don't have any money to pay for anything. You have to come to us with the idea and with the money. But we always keep a sort of a wish list, a priority list. You see on the screen there what our priorities are, what we want to do. If we were to ever magically get some money, we would replace markers that are missing, fix markers that are broken or have inaccuracies in them, and then we want to start looking at metro properties, including schools and parks that need markers, and then underrepresented geographic and different topics throughout the county that we think maybe wouldn't get a group behind them, but we see them as being historically significant. But we magically got some money in July of this past year. We had some council people who lobbied on our behalf and got money to do markers, like Caroline mentioned, one for each council district. So if you have a marker idea, tell your council person, and they can help you to see that to fruition. But we also got money to cover everything on our priority wish list. So for the next couple of years, we're going to be working through all of the council districts, and we're going to be working on the first part of our priority list. We're working on districts 1 through 4 right now. And as Caroline said, it takes a while to get through these. It takes several months from the time we come up with the idea until it actually arrives and we're ready to put it in. So unfortunately, our idea for the schools and the desegregation commemoration do not line up with what's happening right now. But in Q4 of 2019, we will be putting up markers for Buena Vista, Clemens, Glenn, Hattie Cotton, Jones, and the Jones School. All of those will be getting historical markers that will talk about their role in the desegregation of Nashville public schools. Also, the Trimble School will be there as well as one of the oldest African American schools in Nashville. So does anyone have any questions about the schools or the process or anything like that we can answer for you this evening?
Just let us know how you get everything on your wish list approved with notes on that.
Years and years and years of work, apparently. But yeah, so we're very thankful that we have this opportunity. We hope to do it again. It's been great. As we've gone through every district, there are just more and more and more things that we find that we would think should have historical markers. And we found that the best way to start looking in the districts is to look at the parks and to look at schools. So you guys are forefront in our minds, we promise. And honestly, if we've had one person choose something from the list that we gave them, we had one person choose something that someone from their district came to them and said that they wanted that wasn't even on our list, we didn't even know about. So if there's something you feel passionately about, mobilize, tell your council person, and hopefully we'll get that with a marker, as well as all of these great schools. So thank you all so much for what you're doing with our desegregation commemoration this year. Anything that we can do to help, we absolutely want to be involved in any way that we can. We have a newsletter that goes out every month. We're happy to publicize that, to participate in any way, or to provide research or feedback for anything that you guys need. So we really appreciate you, and we look forward to working with you over the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I please relate our appreciation to the rest of the Historical Commission
Absolutely.
staff. The commission does great work preserving Nashville's history, and the schools are certainly a big part of that. So thank you for being ahead of us.
Absolutely.
Look
Thank you
forward to
guys so
working with you.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you. We will move on to Hunters Lane High School Band. Ms. Spearing.
Thank you. Dr. Kessler and Mr. Brooks, would you come up to the podium, please? It is my distinct pleasure to recognize the Hunters Lane Marching Band, which we heard tonight. They are affectionately known as the Human Boombox. That's what your jacket said, wasn't it? Yeah. The band has been under the direction of Mr. William Brooks, who is the fifth-year teacher in Metro Schools. And in each of the 4 previous years, 100% of his seniors has received a scholarship to college. As a result, Hunters Lane Band alumni perform at colleges as far away as Texas Southern University in Houston, Jackson State in Mississippi, Grambling State University in Louisiana, Miles College in Birmingham, Stillman College in Selma, Alabama, and Lane College and TSU in our state. Mr. Brooks pledged to visit graduates of Hunters Lane High School Band on the weekends so that he can go and watch them perform and cheer them on. So the Hunters Lane High School Band is not just a band, it's a family. And proof of the family atmosphere occurred a few years ago, or how long ago was that? A few years ago, wasn't it? When Mr. Brooks proposed to his wife at halftime on the football field. The kids characteristically got out of formation so that they could go and embrace the new couple. Hunters Lane Band has been invited to perform in Paris, France, at their D-Day parade, in Washington, D.C., for the Memorial Day Parade, and they have been a popular band for the last 4 years at Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Just last week, they were honored to perform at the America's Thanksgiving Day Parade in Detroit, Michigan, where the band won first place. This was a full circle life event for Mr. Brooks, who grew up in Detroit and marched in this very parade in his own school when he was a student. Hunters Lane Band has grown from 17 members to almost 80 in the last few years. Amazing. And that's because of his leadership. They are also one of the most popular student groups at Hunters Lane. The students are dedicated and motivated, but their commitment is only surpassed by the awesome sound which we were able to enjoy tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. Thank you, Dr. Kessler. Should we take another? Do we take another picture? Okay.
We will move on to our governance issues, our organization, and we will start with the consent agenda. Ms. Spearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The consent agenda reads as follows. 1A, approval of minutes of the regular meeting on October the 24th, 2017. B, recommended approval of change order number 3 for Hume Fogg Magnet High School, renovations Messer Construction Company. C, approval of purchases and contracts. 1, Aleve Incorporated. 2, America Paper and Twine. 3, Amplify Education, Inc. 4, CDW Government. 5, Escola LLC, doing business as Escola Roofing. 6, Frist Center for the Visual Arts. 7, Metis Associates, 2 contracts. 8, Millsap Gowan Government Relations. 10, the New Teacher Project, Inc. 11, University Pittsburgh, doing business as the Institute of Learning with 3 contracts. And D, settlement, legal settlement claim number C-3-5559 for $6,000. Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Get a second? Okay, it's been approved and seconded on the consent agenda. Can we go ahead and use our iPads to vote?
I have a question.
Sure.
Discussion. Matt, is there any reason why number 9 Quaver music was pulled?
We had some capacity questions on that, and we understand that Dr. Nola Jones, who leads Music Makes Us, can be with us on the 12th to explain that particular contract.
Okay, because my understanding is it's tied directly to items 6 and 7 as well. It's a 3-part grant, so are there questions?
All I know is that she's going to be here on the 12th to explain what they're doing in our elementary schools primarily.
Okay, well, it's okay, personal.
Thank you. The consent agenda has been approved unanimously. We will move on to item number 2 on governance issues, the approval of MNPS next recommendation for Caldwell and Glenn and Merle. Dr. Joseph?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On October 24th, at the board meeting, I made a recommendation to consolidate Glenn and Caldwell and move the program at Merle School to the Glenn site. And just some background on that. Currently, Glenn Elementary and Caldwell Elementary are operating significantly under capacity. The two schools are just 1 mile away from one another and serve the same community. Caldwell is the larger of the two schools and would accommodate all students. Additionally, by consolidating the two schools, it would help provide additional resources and staff talent to support our academic priorities such as literacy, technology, instruction, math, science, and the arts. The Merle School is housed in a building that is in need of a $9.5 million renovation. The Glenn building is a more modern facility that only requires an approximate $400,000 investment for a new HVAC system and some minor modifications to meet the specific needs of the Merle students. Moving Merle to Glenn Elementary would provide a safer, more spacious, modern facility to accommodate additional resources and staff talent to better support the needs of our Merle students and families. So since that board meeting on October 24th, we've met with teachers, staff, parents, and community members on several occasions, including 5 community meetings at the 3 schools to keep them informed and to gather feedback. The feedback has been very positive, and we are convinced that we will have a smooth transition for students, faculty, staff, and families. So tonight we come back requesting board action on the consolidation of Caldwell and Glenn in the Caldwell building and to move the Merle School to the Glenn site, with the changes to take place at the beginning of the 2018-2019 school year.
Does anybody have any questions of Dr. Joseph?
Motion first.
Okay. All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Dr. Gentry made the motion and Christian seconded it. Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. Oh, okay, sorry. I was making notes. Okay, we have a motion. It's been approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, Smithson Craighead Academy. Dr. Joseph?
Thank you once again. Smithson Craighead Charter School has supported MNPS for the past 10 years. The school is to be commended for its drive, commitment, passion, and its mission. However, due to the school's inability to make consistent academic progress over the past 10 years, financial audits that show fiscal irregularities, and Smithson Craighead being in the bottom 10% of the state academically, Smithson Craighead meets the criteria for a non-renewal of their contract. In making a recommendation to the board, I'm guided by your policy EE-17 regarding charter schools, which reads, the director shall make recommendations to the board with respect to all charter school applicants. Recommendations shall be compliant with the board's vision for the use of charter schools as a direct component of meeting district goals. Further, with respect to charter school applications and monitoring of existing charter schools, the director shall not allow contracts to be recommended or continued if fiscal jeopardy or failure to make consistent progress toward their stated objectives is a likely outcome or is evident. In addition, the director shall not allow existing charter schools to operate in a manner that would jeopardize the learning or well-being of their students. For those reasons, I am recommending that you deny Smithson Craighead's renewal application as a public charter school in Metro Nashville Public Schools. MNPS Executive Officer of Charter Schools, Dennis Queen, will now step forward and provide more detail about the Smithson Craighead's overall performance.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Joseph, thank you very much for the opportunity this evening to come before you concerning the 10-year renewal application of Smithson Craighead Academy. At the August 22nd board meeting, this body requested additional information on the school's academic performance on 2016-17 state testing, a historical view of achievement, and also an instructional assessment of the school. As a review, this particular slide provides a summary of the review team's initial findings based on the Smithson-Craighead Academy renewal application. There were 5 areas noted. Number 1, poor academic performance. Number 2, audit exceptions. Number 3, leadership turnover. Number 4, no clear plan for addressing academic deficiencies. And number 5, the school has been identified as a target school, meaning low performance, which necessitates a closure recommendation. Areas reported on today that were requested by this board that we come forth and do. There are several areas there that we want to share, with the first one being focused on academic performance for the 2016-17 school year. Current academic performance places Smithson-Craighead at the bottom 10% of all schools in the state, with a 6.8 percentile ranking and a 15.5% overall success rate of the school. The 2016 state testing results in ELA are indicated in this chart. I would note to you that there is an 89.2% of our students are not on track, 10.8% are on track, and no students mastered the curriculum in ELA. 2016 state testing results for math are indicated in this chart. 85.5% of the students are not on track. 14.5% are on track. No students have mastered. The third slide for science, 2016 state testing results for science are indicated in this chart. 78.8% are not on track. 21.2% are on track. 0% have mastered the science curriculum. The academic performance historical profile that was requested by the board, you may notice when you look at it that there's a drop in proficiency in all areas after 2009. In doing a research, in 2010, the state assessment changed significantly from the previous years, which accounts for the drastic change in scores. There were new tests, new rigorous assessments, and new standards introduced that year. And we found that across the district there was a drop due to the new assessment, the higher rigor, and standards. The empty boxes in yellow represent less than 10 students tested, thus there are no scores reported where you see the yellow. The instructional assessment, which was performed by our Department of Teaching and Learning, I have several charts that we'll look at. The instructional assessment provided by the MNPS Department of Teaching and Learning provided the following information as represented in the following slides. 90% of the students observed were unable to articulate what was being learned. 95% of the students observed were unable to articulate why it was being learned. 78% of the classrooms were teacher-centered, not student-centered. 91% of the students were observed as compliant versus authentically engaged in learning. 61% of the student-teacher interactions were noted as neutral. 35% were noted as positive. 70% of the students' classrooms were deemed acceptable. 22% were deemed messy. 96% of the classroom instruction was exhibited as possessing low instructional rigor. Strengths noted were with student accommodations and bell-to-bell activity. Challenges noted were a lack of standards-based instruction. Student assessments were worksheets. Lack of methodology during math instruction. Uncertainty around Tier 2 and 3 interventions. No math interventions. Overall findings, teachers were not using Tennessee standards. Lessons were disjointed and incoherent. There was a lack of rigor and passive learning. school budget, around physical stability. There is a failure to maintain required liquid assets. Audits have exceptions, all but 1 year. And there are concerns based upon monthly reports to our office that the rate of income to expenditures, the school is projected to run out of money in 2018. Enrollment. The school has been slowly losing enrollment in 5 of the past 6 years. Parents of SCA, or Smithson Craighead Academy, have already begun to call student assignment here at MNPS office inquiring about possible choices for next year. I take you back to the 4 renewal questions, which are part of the MNPS renewal policy. Question number 1 says, is the school an academic success? The review team says it does not meet that standard. Number 2, is the school an effective, viable organization? The assessment team says it does not meet that standard. Number 3, is the school physically sound? The review team says it does not meet the standard. Number 4, is the renewal plan for the next 10-year charter period reasonable, feasible, and achievable? The review team says it does not meet standard. And that concludes the presentation today.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Queen? Ms. Pierce?
So thank you for the more detailed notes that we were given in our packet. And the question I had asked last time was, where will most of the children go? And so I have seen at least the schools, but the honest assessment is there are quite a few district schools in the surrounding area that are also low performing. What steps will be taken to help guide and advise the families on putting their child in a school that will meet their needs?
Yes, ma'am. There are, in the close proximity to Smithson Craighead, there are 5 schools that are scoring above level. There are 4 that are scoring below. So parents will certainly be given options. There are options that are broader with some select schools that they can certainly look to apply to as well. The schools that are lower performing have added supports due to staffing, the way we staff schools based on a need. So there are resources that are put into those schools to provide extra support and help to children, resources to help get them to a better place academically. So those options are certainly shared with the parents when they do call the district asking about some of their options and that they have.
Madam Chair, actually my intern, Don Effianai, has a question, and we actually have opposing views on this, so I did not coach her. These are just student thoughts. Go right ahead, Don.
So I kind of just don't understand, maybe I'm just mishearing, but how is closing the school beneficial for the kids? You're just going to send these low-performing kids to a different school. I don't understand how that's beneficial to them.
I can quickly answer that. I think they would go to a school that is not that's fiscally stable. They would be in a school that has a number of the schools in that area are receiving additional supports and focus. So we know that they'll have rigorous curriculum. And we know that we're providing direct support instructionally. The fact is we have many schools that need to improve. But one of the, when we contract with the charter school, as part of giving a charter school more autonomy, we are clear that there's, a high level of accountability there. But we're putting more accountability on all those schools, but we won't have the issues of fiscal solvency. We won't have the issues of curriculum and training as they go to those other schools. And the area where the schools are available, there are some schools down there. We have the new magnet schools that are that we're introducing next year as well. So families would have an option to go to those schools that have lots of additional supports and resources.
Ms. Brogue.
So as we all know, this is a difficult decision tonight because so many of us know Sister Sandra and know how committed she is and know that this is a loving environment for these students. And So it's notable to me and the information that, the supplemental information that guess we don't have before us tonight, that this school is really kind of on par with other schools in the area, as you said, serving similar populations. You have, it's about 50-50, and they're somewhere in the middle. And then the other complicating factor is that we don't, if we're looking at growth, this is kind of a baseline year because we've had so many problems with the testing. And I know there are other issues to consider. And for me, the issue is if we know that this school is, when it's serving a difficult population that has a high need population, if we are, we're looking at a 10-year contract, we're probably, that's our only option. And I think that's a big problem with the state law because I think we need more flexibility in how we address these contracts. So I know that the test scores are low and there are issues, but I would love to see us give them a chance for, a year or two and then see where they are since this is the baseline year. And I know the state law requires us to give them a 10-year contract, but we can structure the contract in any way that we would like to structure it. And so, and I think one of our failings in the past is that we have been accepting the application as a contract instead of setting very clear terms for the contract. And so I would love to see us give them, a certain amount of time and set very clear expectations on growth or achievement. I think is a more difficult measure because that's going to reflect socioeconomics largely, but give them time to see if they can pull the scores up. And I think it's notable to me that, they did have really good performance prior to 2010. And I know that's, that's been a while, but I'm wondering what the difference is if it's just, they don't, I don't know, what kind of supports they would need to get back to that place. I know more difficult standards, but anyway, those are my thoughts. And I know that we also do not have to make the decision tonight. I know this is not something we want to prolong, but on the other hand, if we were to decide we wanted to structure a contract in such a way that we had very clear expectations of the school and clear supports put in place, and give them 1 to 3 years to see what happens with growth, since growth is starting to move, tick in the right direction, and they have new leadership and all those things. That would interest me, and we could, prove it up until February is my understanding.
Dr. Gentry.
So I have a few questions, and Ms. Harkey, I've been looking at you, so just be prepared. Just pulling the thread on Ms. Froge's comments, I think, yes, last time we discussed this, I think you made it very clear the criteria under which we could make a different decision. So if we approve to extend the contract for this school for 10 more years, what are the and what can we literally bake into the terms that would say, okay, this is cause for? Because I think state law is pretty clear on the reasons why you can revoke a contract.
So you're right. What we'd be looking at is it would be for a 10-year period, and you're looking at how can you revoke somebody, or how can you revoke a contract? Under the charter school law, there is an ability to revoke or deny renewal if the school is found to be a priority school. Additionally, a charter agreement can be revoked for one of 3 reasons. If the charter school has committed a material violation of any of the conditions, standards, or procedures set forth in the charter agreement. I think that's what we're really talking about here, if I understand what Ms. Froge is saying. Additionally, you can revoke a charter agreement at any time if the charter school fails to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management, or if they performed any of the acts that are conditions for non-approval under 4913-108C, which happens, it's dealing with immigrant workers, so not an issue here.
So to Ms. Froge's point, if we baked something into the contract that said we're looking for a certain amount of percentage of growth over 3 years and we don't see that, then we could revoke the charter?
Arguably, yes.
Okay. My next question, I just want to clarify the data that's in front of me. Is it fair to say that from a ethnic and socioeconomic and high needs perspective, that Smith and Craighead's data reflects the results they've been able to achieve for students, primarily students of color? So are these
Say
all
that
the
again.
demographics that are the
Yes, ma'am.
demographics here represent all the, so
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have African-American students, we've got Hispanic students, Native American, Black, Hispanic, we've got economically disadvantaged students, we've got English language learners, and students with disabilities. That represents everybody.
That was the data that was provided, yes, ma'am.
So these are the students that are reflected in that data there. Okay. My next question actually is to address your intern's comment as well, if you don't mind, Dr. Joseph, is the difference is, and and it's okay that she's not here, and I've said this from this board floor before, that a couple of things. Number one, this is really about the students. It's not about the operator. We have other charter operators that are serving difficult populations. We serve difficult populations. 72%, I believe, of our population would be considered difficult. The difference is if we bring these students in, and so I would assume, I would hope, that of the 5 and 4, the 4 that are below, the 5 would be the only options that we would recommend or enroll these students into, and then I can immediately respond when there are problems. If I see here, if I can walk into a classroom and there's not rigor, I can respond to that. If I walk into a classroom and students aren't engaged, I can require an immediate response to that. I can't require an immediate response and monitor and control an immediate response to poor performance and aberrations in my expectations when those schools are not under my umbrella. So that's the difference. It's not about saying that someone's magically going to be 100% mastery when they walk into a different building, but I can then own and be 100% responsible as MNPS for the results that those students are achieving. I cannot own and be 100% responsible for, and I do not mean this with any offense, for a vendor, because every charter operator is a vendor that we have outsourced a need to, a vendor that has come to us and said, we are capable of providing a high quality of service. We are capable of moving these difficult to educate students, this challenging population in a way that you can't, because we're different. We can do things that are amazing. We can do things that are unique. We can do things that are different. We can be out of the box because we don't have all of the rigors and the borders and the boundaries that you as an MNPS school does. And that's the results that we expect to see, that we should expect to see, because we have contracted with a vendor to do something that as MNPS, educating larger populations of very difficult students, is more challenged to do. The very nature of a charter school is innovative strategies and quicker results, and that's not what we're seeing here. So the difference is not that we have schools that are 100% better than what's happening at Smiths and Craighead. The difference is we have schools that are, at least 5, within the same area where you're located, and the other difference is that when there is an aberration and a lack of responsiveness, a lack of skills and a lack of talent, we can own the change that needs to happen a lot quicker than I can recommend it to a vendor to then do. The last thing I want to say is go back to, I think, in his very soft-spoken voice when he read the policy to this board, you know, shame on us that you had to remind us, the policies that we monitor, the policies that we create, the policies that we're responsible for as members of this board. That policy says that we give the authority to the director through his staff, to review our charters and to make recommendations to us. And then we respond based on the data that's placed in front of us. I think that if we need to respect the fact that whatever decision we make here either affirms our policies, affirms the relationship that we should have with our director of schools, or it is totally contraindicative of what our policy says we're supposed to be doing. And if we allow the aberration in this instance, we have set a precedent that for any other charter operator, because if it's not an aberration, then it's about something else. And I won't even speculate about what it's about, but it has, if it's not about the students, because that policy was written so that we do what's best for students. And if this is just because we believe this particular operator even though it's still a charter, is doing something wholly different than every other operator, then we need to rewrite our policy that says, if I think the operator is doing something wholly different than other operators, then I have this policy that I follow. But if it's a lead, or if it's a KIP, or if it's a pick another one that I'm not excited about, then I'm going to follow this policy. We need to figure out and be consistent in what it is we're here to do. We have policies for a reason. We have policies that allow that to prevent us from making emotional decisions. We have policies so that we can look at the data, that we can support our director, support his staff, so they're doing the job that we have hired them to do. And if we honestly can sit here and look at the parents of these kids and say, I'm willing to pass a vote and take a gamble that the data that I'm seeing over these last 4 to 5 years that's trending in the same direction is going to miraculously change. I'm going to write into the contract, I'm going to risk your kids for 2 or 3 more years, and I'll check on you in 2 or 3 more years. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in the policy, put in your contract, then I'm going to give you 2 or 3 more years to keep doing what you're doing. Cross my fingers that it's changed. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit here and cross my fingers that at least 15% of your kids are able to read, that at least 15 of your kids are able to do numeracy, that possibly 15% of your kids are going to be successful in the sciences. But if not, whatever generations of kids have gone through in those 3 years, we'll then find a different place for them to go. And we hope that we can now catch up, not just in 1 or 2 years, but now got to catch up 3, 4, 5 years for a lack of learning and effectiveness. I'm not promising that if you go into a different school, it's going to be 100% turnaround. But I can promise you that I can control the success of your student much better than I can control the success of your student in their current environment. I'm done.
Well,
Anybody else have any comments or questions of Ms. Flynn?
so she took a lot of what I had to say. I will say this. I will preface this. I definitely have a heart for Smithson Craighead. Began my career at Smithson Craighead Middle School. Appreciate Sister Sandra. Spoke with her today, and also have had a couple of conversations via email with Mr. White, if he's in the room. Thank you for the information that you've passed. Dr. Gentry makes very good points that we are supposed to be looking objectively at what is going to happen to our students, to our babies. When I'm hoping that when all of us decided to run for a school board seat, it was with students in mind, that we would always do what was best for children. My 2 things are I'm going to always do what's best for children, I'm going to always do what's best for my community, and I don't know that those 2 things are not in conflict right now. But what I have to focus on students. We spoke with the mayor last week, and we made sure that we told her that we understand our role and that our role is not administrative, that it's governing, that our role is just to support Dr. Joseph. And if Dr. Joseph and his team have suggested that maintaining this school in their portfolio would not be beneficial and would not help them to make the strides and the kind of gains that we want for our students, that we need to be supportive of him in that. I will say that looking at the 4 schools surrounding them did give me cause to pause. But as we've said, there are 5 other schools that we would hopefully recommend to these students if they are asked to leave or if the school is asked to close down. To the teachers and families, I understand. I was at Neely's Bend when we were shut down. I understand when you feel like you are able to offer something better for your students. The unfortunate reality in this situation is that our data doesn't show that. The data right now doesn't show that students are getting something academically better than what they would get at another school surrounding them. Our goal is to help every single student. And Ms. Frog and Ms. Spearing recently went to I forget the name of the conference, the Community Schools Conference, but our goal in MNPS is to make sure that we are building a portfolio where our choice schools support our community schools, and we are focused on our community schools. And I want to take this time to let you know, Ms. Shepard and Ms. Frog, that I'm bringing a choice policy to the board floor hopefully in December, but at the very least in January, so we can be talking about what Dr. Joseph has mentioned since I got on the board, where we talk about our choice schools and how they should work and how we could collaborate with them, what those contracts should look like. Because from a teacher standpoint, we've been operating out of turn. We've been operating a bit more subjectively than objectively, and we should be looking at not just raw data. I don't want to subject your children to being just numbers on a plot. That's not at all my goal. But when we look at things like the rigor in the classroom, the way the classroom is set up, PDs for teachers, these are causes for concern. Mr. White, from what he emailed us, has been coming in like a whirlwind working hard. It looks like the teachers are really working hard, but he suggested that there's been 0.6% to a full year of growth in ELA, but this would be based on iReady scores. iReady is a great contractor for us. I'm sorry, I did my homework, because to me, closing a school is that's a big deal. So I've stayed up for the last week doing research, and because this is what we should be arguing about. This is what we should be discussing. So I've been doing my research, and I looked at iReady. I spoke with Dr. Changus. I reached out to Dr. Severe, and iReady, although it is helpful, the math or the ELA scores are not aligned to our Tennessee State standards. So it's hard for me to look at those growth scores and say that gives me a real clear picture of where students will score on 10 Ready. To anyone that doesn't understand that, iReady is an online resource. Students can go on to iReady and they'll go through the different standards, and it's supposed to support their learning, support their growth. The unfortunate reality, though, is that the standards that they will be tested over in April and May are not necessarily the standards that they're tested over right now on iReady. So this score, this growth, though it's wonderful, may not necessarily be a true representation of their growth when they're measured at the end of the school year. One thing that he said is that lessons are being evaluated for rigor. He sent us a basic template, and I'm glad to see that something is being implemented, but the idea that there had not been a basic template in the past means that there was not necessarily a model. And my concern is, and I think back to my time at Neely's Bend before we got shut down, we didn't have a consistent administrator. So in the 3.5 years that I worked there, I went through 3 different administrators. That meant that there was no model for my school. At a charter school, my expectation would be that there is a model, that there is something there that's happening that's different, as Dr. Gentry alluded to. There's something that you all do. The love that you have for your students is definitely helpful, but what academic model is there that no matter what administrator is there, this thing continues to move? Is it that there's a focus on literacy during intervention? Is it that there's a focus on restorative justice? Is it that there are clubs? What is it that academically will make sure that our students don't fall through the cracks? There was also an issue with PD trainings, and he did address that. Thank you again, Mr. White. My only concern is that those PD trainings that he mentioned don't seem to be happening as often as we might hope for them to, especially if you're trying to help teachers to be better ready and able to support students that we wouldn't want to call difficult, but that are typically underrepresented and underserved. I do appreciate, though, I do have to shout this out, the idea that you all are doing what charter schools are intended to do, and you're actually trying to collaborate with MNPS, that you all are sending your teachers to other schools to see what's happening in their classrooms. I appreciate that. There's often more difference in what happens between classes in the same building than what happens between classes in different buildings. So the idea that you are looking to collaborate with other schools that are similar to yours, I think is wonderful. Thank you for that. You really touched on a whole lot of this stuff. I do appreciate the restorative justice program. Excuse me? Touche. I appreciate the restorative justice program, though. That is something that I think that MNPS is, because we have claimed that as one of our core values, that we want to restore students, that we want to pour into them. We are tired of just expelling students, especially students of color, especially low poverty students. But I think this speaks to the idea of your heart, but again, not as much to the academic goals that we would hope that you would attain. So again, I have a mixed bag of emotions, because emotionally I am attached to this school and I want to see it do well, but objectively, as a board, I didn't know this before I became a school board member, or before I ran for the school board, but our role is only to act based on policy. And based on what our policy says, this school should close, because that is what Dr. Joseph and his team have suggested. The idea that the administrative team that is making this recommendation isn't made up of 1 or 2 or 3 people, but it's made up of a hodgepodge of people that come from all different corners of the district. There are some charter operators and charter professionals and administrators that are part of this team. There is the financial component, which, I'm sorry, I have to go back just a little bit. The financial issue is an issue. The idea that, and I did not want to say this, I really didn't want to say this, but I remember being there that second year at Smith and Craighead, and there being issues with paychecks. You know, that is a concern. You, as a teacher, you're already working for pennies. I'm sorry, I have to say it, we are. But I can only imagine that SCA, that your teachers are working for pennies as well. That, you know, there's just not enough money to go around for everyone. But the idea that you could come in, work, and then not be paid because the fundraising was an issue is an issue. That is a concern. Mr. White did suggest that he has a full board. Shoot, my uncle's on the board. So he has a board of people that are ready to take on the task. They are ready to fundraise. But how sustainable is that? I made sure to reach out to our finance department here in MNPS, and that is a fear that we have. So if the school remains open, we will rally behind you. We will champion you. We will, as Mr. Queen said at the last meeting, that we will pour resources into you and to support you. But these numbers, I think about my son. I think about where he's going to go when he turns 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And I would hate the idea that not only does he not have a chance of mastering any subject that's tested, there was not one student that mastered anything, but that he potentially wouldn't even be on track, which means on grade level or at least close to grade level. That is of concern for me. Where I struggle the most, though, is what happens to those families that have to disperse. Again, at Neely's Bend, it was easy to have my babies close to me. Once the school was transferred to a charter operator, that became a difficult conversation for those parents to have. Well, do I continue to send my child here or do I not? It's just that much more intensified with the school closing and not even having the option. So that, again, a cause for concern, but at this stage, I still believe that the cons outweigh the pros.
Ms. Berry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Queen, how many students attend Smith and Craighead?
At last count, I think 189.
Okay, and so the parents choose this school?
Yes, ma'am.
And the parents are here tonight because they support the school. They are not on the priority list, is that correct?
They're not in the bottom 5. They would have received an F based on next year's assignments, but they're above that 5%.
I feel strongly that Mr. White is a great instructional leader, and he just hasn't had a chance to get all the ducks in the row in order to create the conditions that we would like to see. Obviously, the parents these 189 parents of students choose this because they feel the same way. They are projected to run out of money in 2018, is that correct?
According to the books that they give us each month, and we've had our financial people look at it, they said mid-January.
Okay. So if that were to happen, we could close them at that point, right?
They would have to close if they become insolvent.
Okay. And if, I really like what Ms. Harkey said, that if we have the conditions and standards and procedures in place, and if there is a violation of those, we can close the school at that point.
Okay.
The fact that of all the charter schools, Smith and Craighead is one who accepts all kids, loves all kids, works with parents and kids. It's what charter schools were originally expected to be. Now, are they where they need to be? No. But because they've got new leadership, I would like to see them have a little more time. And then we can close the school at a later date if these procedures are in violation. That's all I have to say about it.
Ms. Pierce?
I just want to say that I take no pleasure in this. I did go out and visit with Sister Sandra and see the school, and I appreciate the hard work. But I think, like Dr. Gentry said, we have got to follow our own policies and be consistent. Our board's selective use of our own data and policies are going to be the detriment of our students, and we have got to get on the same page and be on board. So again, I take no pleasure in doing this vote, but I do want us to be working with the parents on finding a school where their children have a greater chance of achieving the basics. Thank you.
So I'm just going to say, I think the difficulty I'm having with this is not that it's an emotional decision or it's a personal decision about the people that work there. It is that I feel that so much of this charter discussion is just a shell game, because we really, when we talk about high-quality schools, we're really often talking about shifting populations. And I'll not use charters as an example, but the magnets, and we talk about our highest quality schools are magnets. We know they don't take all kids. We know they're not serving kids with the highest needs in our district. And so when we look at all these numbers, you know, the testing is an issue. I just think we need to develop better policies, I think, to reflect multiple measures of success, and a lot, we are working on that right now. But, you know, you talk about people doing innovative things in charters, and be honest with you, I've toured quite a bit of charters. I don't see them doing a lot of innovative things. I think Sister Sandra, when she opened this school, she really was trying to partner with the district and provide an alternative to what we're doing. And if we're talking about moving these kids into the other 5 schools in the area, you know, what is the difference? Are we talking about we're going to move them from a bottom 10% school to a bottom 14% school? I mean, I don't know where those fall exactly, but I'm thinking they're probably pretty similar. So I guess the issue that I'm having is I feel like it's relatively arbitrary. I know we have to develop policies that we're following, but the policies, I don't think, so the primary policy I think that would help me in making these decisions, where I really felt like it was a level playing field, is to implement the Annenberg standards, and I've had some discussions with you about that. I think if we can implement the Annenberg standards and really have a fair assessment of how all these schools truly are performing and what types of populations they're serving and whether they're keeping all kids and accepting all kids. I get the yearly phone calls every spring from multiple principals that all these kids are coming back from certain charter schools. I've never heard that about Spinson's Craighead. So that's what makes the decision difficult. I'm willing to make the hard decision if I really think these kids are going to get better served somewhere else. I'm just not sure. So I think that's where I'm stuck. So anyway, I guess that's all I want to say. It is about, I think, what's best for students, and I think, if you've got an environment where the kids, we're accepting all the kids, and, this is a supportive environment that the parents are choosing, then we ought to give them a chance. But I do think at some point we are going to have, once we have real data in a few years that is reliable, then, from the baseline that we have, we've got these constantly shifting standards. I mean, it's just very difficult. We've got the school is like in the 80% of kids were doing well, and then we changed the standards, and now they're all in the very bottom. And then we've got new testing and new standards and different no baseline for the growth store. So it's very difficult to make these decisions on a on a level playing field, I think, for all the schools. So those are my concerns.
Dr. Brandon, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say that I have previously served on the charter school application committee, and the standards have remained the same for most of the time that I've served on that committee. We've had a couple of schools that have closed, that we have closed, and one that closed on its own. and they were under the same standards that we are speaking of in terms of the four basic criteria. So I support Dr. Joseph's recommendation.
Anybody else?
Shepherd,
Ms.
have-
Bud?
So I need to apologize. One reason that I joined the board was to make sure that students and teachers have a voice. Would I be speaking out of turn to ask if there might be a teacher that could just speak to, preferably a teacher that had worked in another school and a teacher that's worked in Smithson Craighead, if they could tell us anything about maybe the model that they have now?
Christian, we're not going to do that for
With the
board
growth,
floor.
excuse me,
Do that tonight for the board floor.
about growth, excuse me?
We're not going to ask anybody else to come to the podium tonight.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Anybody else have anything? All right, no, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the, what's your office called? Thank you. Of the charter school office to revoke the charter for Smithson Craighead.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. Yep. A yes is to
Is to
support.
revoke.
To revoke,
Right.
okay.
And nay is to
All right.
re-up the charter for another 10 years.
I can't find one. The motion to revoke the charter has failed.
So with that, Ms. Shepherd, I would ask, I mean, I think based on that, it might be clear where we're going, but I would ask that there actually be a positive action. I know that we now have 5 that have voted nay, but if somebody could make a motion and flip it and just make it very clear what, in fact, we are doing, because the law requires an approval or denial, just, it needs to be clear.
That looks like a denial to me.
I hear you. I just sometimes, because you have to actually vote to approve or deny based on charter school law, if we can just have the same motion and clearly
Flip
deny
it.
it, I think it's going to be much
Okay.
better.
All right. Mr. Spinks.
When is the current charter up? When does the current charter expire? I mean, I'm not sure that we're
The end of the school year.
prepared. I mean, I'm not prepared to go ahead and say tonight that we're going to do another 10 years. Is that what you're encouraging us to do?
I am just simply saying that this 4 to 5 vote, the fact that there are 5 nays, clearly we have not revoked the charter, but I don't know that it is clear what action has been taken.
No action.
Well, if no action is taken, then it automatically renews, correct?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wait a minute.
But it would automatically renew. It's not-
Accept the recommendation to revoke the approval of the charter. 4 people accepted the recommendation, 5 people did not accept the recommendation. So a recommendation to revoke the charter, so it's not revoked. So the charter as it exists today is still in place. It expires June of 2018. But by February, am I correct on that?
That is correct. By
There has to
February
be a clear vote that says we will renew the Smithson Craighead Charter for another 10 years, or we will not renew the Smithson Craighead Charter for another 10 years. So my question is, if we're not going to vote on that tonight, what are we looking for between now and January?
I would assume that if the school wanted to continue operating after the end of the current charter period, that they would have to reapply, correct?
They've already reapplied.
This is their renewal application.
This is,
So we have to, the law says, just as Dr. Gentry is correct in that on or before the following February 1st, so before February 1 of 2018, the chartering authority to which the renewal application was submitted shall rule by resolution whether to approve or deny the renewal application.
Can I make a suggestion? Since we have until February, could we develop some clear standards and expectations for the school so that, what I was suggesting at the beginning, maybe a 3-year period and what we would like to see from them and figure out what supports we put in place and then have that baked into a contract so that it's enforceable?
Certainly, that is something that.
And then probably need a little time to develop recommendations for that.
The law just requires that a final vote occur prior to February 1.
Yeah. So if we could just.
come up with these criteria? Who is qualified to come up with these criteria?
Again, you're talking
He's
about
already
what
made his
these standards, conditions, and procedures are within that charter agreement.
I think the administration could make some recommendations and we have a discussion about.
They did. They
Right,
did make a
but
recommendation.
we denied their recommendation. So we would ask them to create standards, goals for the school within a certain period of time that then we could discuss and vote on as part of the charter agreement.
Dr. Gentry?
So I guess I'm confused. Mr. Queen, may I ask Mr. Queen to come back to the podium? I'm just trying to get clarity here. Mr. Queen, are there not standards that you evaluate the applications against?
Yes, ma'am. We have a performance framework that we use. There's very clear financial expectations. There aren't specific goals within the academics within the law, but the expectation, if you go back and read the law, it talks about they get the added autonomy in order to get greater academic outcomes. But it doesn't give specific benchmark goals. But it's my understanding, and I'm certainly open for a conversation, that contract cannot be provided with stipulations. That was my understanding.
Correct. You can't approve a contract based on conditions or contingencies. However, I think when you read that statute, what it's really talking about is the creation of the contract itself. You can't say, we will only approve this if you
They can't hear
have a
you in the
located-
back. I'm sorry, I don't know why.
Of course, yeah. You can,
get closer.
There is a law that says you can't approve a contract based on conditions and contingencies. But again, I think it's for things kind of related to the application cycle. Like, we are going to approve this contingent on you having your school in this building, or that you will find enough finances, or you will hit a certain level of finances. I think what we're talking about here is within our contract, having it more clear what the academic performance expectations are. And again, the revocation would only be allowed if there was a material violation of those clearly set out standards, procedures within the charter agreement.
So we just need to clarify what our standards are, and then if there is a material violation, then we could close the school. That's the issue, correct?
I think this speaks to the need for just clarity from the board in terms of direction, because we have the charter school renewal policy and benchmarks, and again, it clearly says that charter schools trade greater autonomy granted by the charter school law for greater accountability, which is held by MNPS. And the original charter contract is for a period of 10 years during which the charter is held to academic, organizational, and financial goals yearly. And that's what we've done in making the recommendation. I mean, we could be more explicit, but I do think for consistency and clarity, and we've got to look at how we can be consistent as we go from vendor to vendor. So that's going to be important for us as we move towards the future.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat what she said because she's got the cooties back here. She says we're changing the rules in the middle of the game, and we really, really are. Because we've got contracts we have approved already and renewed that don't have these benchmarks in it. So are we saying we're going to put benchmarks in are the benchmarks going to be the same, or are they going to be based on who the operator is? Or based on our thoughts about whether or not they're retaining particular populations of students. So, I mean, we're putting so much subjectivity in this when we already have policies that we've been using and we've evaluated. And to Dr. Brandon's point, we've made decisions on charter revocations based on the existing policy. And now we want to change how we do that. And I'm still unclear why, because somebody made the comment that parents chose this. Parents choose every charter school. Every charter school is a choice. Yet that's not good enough when we talk about other charters. And so again, I don't have a passion about one school over the other. It's about the students. Are they in a place where they can be successful? And are they in a place where I can then have an impact on that success? Which is what I'm responsible for. How can I best impact that success? One way was to pick a charter operator who could help me contribute to that success, and when that doesn't happen, I have to find a way to impact that success. And this is not a lemonade stand. While we're talking about, well, let's just see what happens. Well, if they run out of money, so now I've got parents sitting here waiting about what to do for their kids because it's just in case in January they don't run out of money. And how much money is enough? Because if the charter office has already told us that the money they have right now is not enough. So how much more becomes enough? And so we can go down this rabbit hole of again, subjective, off-the-cuff thoughts about what is good enough. And we say, and again, I just have to say it, you say have the administration bring us recommendations, they just did. So are their recommendations on benchmarks going to be more valuable or more important or more significant than their recommendation they just made?
Ms. Hunter?
So I have to admit, I'm literally shaking. But let me just say that it would be very helpful to the board if there are times when we have to make these tough decisions, and truth be told, many of us aren't even here to take a vote. So we've heard a lot tonight, but many times we don't hear anything. So when we get to a tough decision like this one today, it is really difficult. But I would really strongly suggest that when it's time to make tough decisions like this, that we need all 9 people at the table to make that decision for every charter school and not just a Smithson Craighead. But let me also add that as it relates to the contract, and we voted tonight it looks like, to not revoke the contract. So we have 2 decisions to make. We either keep it for 10 years or we come up with something special, because that's the vote that we made tonight. So that's all I have to say.
I feel like we've gotten in a time machine and gone back to 2013. We're kind of back in charter debates, which is not, I think, where none of us want to be. Madam Chair, fellow board members, we've cast a vote. It was clear. I would respectfully request that we take this conversation out of the boardroom, take it to Governance Committee, where it probably belongs. Ms. Buggs is talking about drafting a policy that has the potential to affect the EE-17 policy that Dr. Joseph cited in making the recommendation tonight. So I think, let's use the committee system for what it's there for and have a discussion and then figure out, what motion, if any, to bring back to the board floor later.
That sounds good to me. Okay. We will move on to reports our organization. Dr. Joseph.
Thank you. I asked our Government Relations Director, Mark North, to prepare a legislative agenda for the upcoming season of the Tennessee General Assembly. It's important, we have currently worked with class, but it's important for us to have our own Metro Schools legislative agenda. And I think it's important that the legislature and others in state government know our positions on the front end and understand what we can expect of them. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. North.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Joseph. Thank you for the hard work you do. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to advocate for Metro schools. This year is going to be a unique year at the General Assembly for several reasons. One is the meeting rooms and the legislators' offices have moved. They're closing the Legislative Plaza after, 40 years or so, and moving to Cordell Hall. So it's a whole new location, which makes it unique. But it may also substantively be unique. About 40 legislators are not seeking re-election to the position they hold this coming year. Now, some of them are running for other offices, some of them are retiring, and how that will affect the dynamic of the legislature is going to be interesting to watch. But it makes for a unique year, and the influences on them may be a little different now that they are retiring. Maybe they have a signature bill they've been pushing for a long time, and they'll push it harder. Maybe that has something to do with education, maybe it doesn't. But either way, it's going to be a unique year. So we have a legislative agenda, and it's going to start with general statement. That gives us flexibility because things come up that we don't expect or some that we do expect. But we are flexible enough to use those general principles when bills are presented or in order to draft and present some bills. First topic, and the first general topic, of course, is funding. And we're going to support adequate funding of public education. That includes the BEP, which is the funding formula that the state uses to be fully funded. Now, fully funding BEP includes funding unfunded mandates, all right? Now, there are a lot of those. The state says you have to do this, you have to do that, you're required to have this program, but they're not paid for. Some of those you see listed include changes in standards and testing, technology in order to take those tests, RTI squared, which is response to instruction and intervention, is an important one. And the BEP Review Committee has made, I guess, a recommendation that receive funding this year. The BEP Review Committee points out that if it is funded at one position for 1,000 students, per 1,000 students, that would cost approximately $35 million. Now, there are other bills that suggest a different ratio. I think there's one that says 3 positions per school, which would be more money than that. There was some discussion at the summer study session that the ratio deal with students, a number of students that require intervention rather than all students. And what is proposed and what works through the legislature, we will see. But I expect some funding within the BEP formula, that RTI be included in the BEP formula this year. Another part of funding is to increase the salary component within the BEP formula. And what we'd like to do is increase it to the statewide average for teacher salary. Now, I've seen an estimate that to do that would cost about $625 million to increase it that much. Now, that's a lot, and it needs to be higher within the formula, and we will push that this year. We're going to push that the BEP pay for licenses and it adequately funds salaries. Also, this year, the state changed the way economically disadvantaged or at-risk students were defined or identified, from free and reduced meal to direct certification. Now, that has had a pretty significant impact. There are for our schools, in several ways, a couple of ways. One is it's difficult to identify all of those students that would qualify under that definition, and we're having some issues with that. It also does not include undocumented students and undocumented families, so they are underrepresented in that definition and that funding. When they changed that definition, they increased the amount per student within the formula, but it's clear that they didn't increase it enough, and that's something we will push through the year. Nurses in schools. The BEP formula pays, or the ratio, is 1 position per 3,000 students. The recommended ratio from the National Association of School Nurses, I believe, is 1 for every 750 students, every 750 healthy students, in addition to students who have special needs, special health situations. The BEP Review Committee, again, recommends a change to 1 to 750 ratio, which would be a really good step. Now, that cost is also about $35 million, and that's something we will push. Just the ratio for school counselors toward best practices. Best practices, I believe, is 1 to 200 students, and the BEP Review Committee has recommended a step that way to 1 to every 250 students, and that cost is an additional $56 million, and we will push for that. And also an increase in funding for pre-K. Second category, broad category, is governance, local control. And we recognize, and we think the legislature should recognize, that the local school board and local school systems are best equipped, best situated to know what's best for their communities and their local schools. So we'll push for maximum flexibility to design and operate innovative programs, and option to seek a waiver from rules that inhibit such programs. We'll come back to this a little bit in another category, but we'll also support efforts of improving high priority schools, that they should be implemented collaboratively, right, with the school system rather than with hostility toward the local school system. One bill and idea that comes up every year, and I'm not sure why it keeps coming up, but we need to address it each year, is the notion of elected school superintendents. We support the school board appointing school superintendents. And that the local school board retains the authority to determine whether a charter school application is approved, is granted, and can consider all relevant factors when making that decision, recognizing that the school board and the school system knows the community and its needs best. Next general topic is the ASD, the Achievement School District. And to put it bluntly, it is a failed experiment. The Achievement School District, its time it has come. This general statement talks about sunsetting the Achievement School District, and that I see that as, when you picture that, it's sort of slowly going behind the horizon, and I'm not sure whether that's appropriate or whether to go cold turkey. But it is not meeting what it was designed to do, and it needs to be either closed or reconfigured. And I almost just left it at that, but I have some other things that to add that would be positive steps in case cold turkey isn't accepted. And after Thanksgiving, I guess cold turkey's all right. One is a moratorium on adding schools to the ASD until the ASD can show consistent academic achievement and substantial academic gains. That the ASD not add schools until the following priority list is generated, giving school districts opportunity to make those interventions and to rectify the issues at those schools. Require the ASD to be responsible for deferred maintenance in the buildings that it occupies. And we have litigation around this. I'm not going to talk too much about it. But prohibit the ASD or schools authorized by the ASD from using student information for marketing for recruiting. Now, our interpretation of the law and what the court will say, we can use several branches of government to make sure the law is appropriate, whether that's judicial through where we're in court or through the legislature. Next broad topic, assessment, standards, and accountability. We promote high expectations, fair assessments, transparent and accurate measures for accountability. We oppose additional state-mandated assessments. We support a 3-year freeze on punitive net measures to schools and school districts when there's a change in standards and testing to allow a more accurate assessment. We oppose the legislature making the curriculum. That's up to the state school board and not the House and Senate. And we support refining the state report card to more accurately depict academic performance and specifically oppose the A through F grading as misleading. Next broad topic is human resources recruitment and retention, and many of these specific bullet points came from discussions around this board table during a presentation earlier this fall. Provide adequate teacher compensation, good working condition, appropriate professional development, have flexibility for planning, instructional planning time, establish reciprocity of teaching licenses with other states, boost opportunities for non-traditional paths to teaching, second career teachers, hard to staff subjects, et cetera. Establish pipelines for paraprofessionals to earn teacher's license, and discourage or prohibit the poaching of teachers after the school year begins. Vouchers. MNPS opposes state efforts to divert public funds to non-public schools. I almost stopped right there. Now, I think last year was probably vouchers' best chance. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to come back and be considered. It will. But I think its chances of success are less than they have been in the past. But if vouchers are adopted, the law should require schools that use the vouchers to administer all the state-mandated assessments. That the facilities used for educating voucher students meet or exceed the same standards and requirements for public school facilities. They require evidence of enrollment, capacity, and the numbers issued. and accepted by the non-public school, and establish a process for the return of funds when students don't enroll or are expelled or withdraw, and establish a process for verification of non-public school accreditation. The final general topic is in-state college tuition. And this is a bill that nearly passed last year. And the idea is that if you are a graduate of Tennessee Public School, Metro Nashville Public School, and you are a resident of Tennessee, you are eligible for in-state college tuition, period. Now, the question that comes up is with regard to undocumented students. We promote that bill and bring it back again and support the notion that if you graduated from a Tennessee public school and you reside in Tennessee, you're eligible for in-state college tuition. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We will be working with other supporters of public education, of course, the class representatives, and TSBA, and TOS, and TEA, and others. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? I do. I have one. So on the last slide, when you talked about in-state college tuition, you said that almost passed last year?
Correct.
So
Yes.
are any of the 40 legislators not running for re-election? Are they out of the way now?
That is I don't know the answer to your question. And whether they will, whether they have different motivation now, we'll see. And whether we can convince others that it's the right thing to do and appropriate will be the trick. And the way I look at this is these are our expectations of our legislators. We set our expectations, and hopefully we can all work together, and they can even exceed those expectations.
Thank you, Mark. That was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Literacy update, Dr. Joseph.
Okay, thank you. So literacy is more than a skill, habit, or understanding. It's a gatekeeper to opportunity. In an effort to boost and accelerate literacy achievement in the district, we're piloting 3 literacy initiatives at the elementary level. We expect each of these programs to dramatically improve literacy achievement, and we look forward to seeing the results. And tonight we have Dr. Felder and a team providing information about each pilot, and you'll hear from school staff who are implementing each of the programs. At this point, I will turn it over to Dr. Felder.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. So good evening, everyone. Tonight, this wonderful group and I want to share with you 3 literacy pilots that are being implemented in the district. You should have received a packet of the full colored slides that will be shared tonight. And in your packet, the last page is a capture sheet. And I just want to kind of walk you through the capture sheet. And so the first column lists the 3 literacy pilots that we will present tonight. The second column lists all of the participating schools, and there are 27. Know that 4 of the schools are actually participating in 2 of the pilots and 1 of the 27 schools in all 3 pilots. It's also important to note that all of the schools voluntarily chose to participate. They were not recommended to participate, forced to participate. They chose to participate in these pilots. The third column represents all of the presenters. And so each of them will introduce themselves as they share with you tonight. And last but not least, the fourth column, that column is there for you to jot down any comments or questions you have, because we ask that you hold your comments and questions until the end of the presentation.
And Dr. Felder, may I suggest that we allow the presenters to be seated until The time of the
Are you breaking that wasn't
They
part of
making
the
me
plan,
tired, huh?
Dr. Joseph.
I
They're
know they're
ready to stand. They've got cramps in their legs. Okay. Oh, wow. By myself. Okay. So moving right along here. So goal one of our strategic framework is focused on creating consistent improvement in academic achievement. A performance measure related to Goal 1 is to increase the percent of students demonstrating greater than average growth in all content areas. And we know that that includes reading, English language arts, or literacy. And so, as you know, literacy is a major focus in our district. It's a fundamental skill, and indeed, as Dr. Joseph said, it is a gatekeeper. So how are we defining literacy in this district? Well, in MNPS, we are defining it as the ability to read, to write, to listen, to speak, to think critically. And why? Well, in order to build and communicate knowledge.
Dr. Felder, one quick question.
Yes.
On the list of pilots, you have different colors.
Yes.
On there. What do the colors reflect?
Okay, so you're referring to the capture sheet. So the colors just indicate which schools are in more than one pilot. So, for example, Alex Green is in green, and you can just follow. You can just see which pilots it's in. So it's just to highlight the schools that are in more than one of the pilots. Alex Green is in 2 of the pilots, Glengarry in 2, Hayward in 2, and you can see which 2 they're in. Just thought it'd make it easier to follow. Neely's Bend is in 2 of the pilots, and Paragon Mill is in all 3 pilots. Okay? All right. So as I mentioned, literacy is a major focus in our district, and I shared our definition of literacy, and I would say that if you Google the word literacy, you'll see lots of definitions, but regardless of the definition, again, we know that no skill is more critical to the future of a child than literacy. In fact, our very own Dr. Joseph said, we have to liberate our children. We have to give them the greatest civil right we can give them, and that is the ability to read. And while we know that literacy is a critical skill and it is a civil right, our data indicates that too many of our students are not accessing that civil right. In fact, 2015 data, state data indicate that 34% or 1/3 of our students in the grades 3 to 5 grade band were at or above proficiency in reading. And our most recent T and Ready data indicate that 25% or 1/4 of our students in that same grade band who were tested on more rigorous standards are on track or mastered reading, English language arts, or literacy skills. So we have data that compel us to act. And these data compel us to act because we know that if we change nothing, nothing will change. And so last year, one of the things that we put in place to address or impact literacy achievement in the district was to upgrade the balanced literacy framework. And so we focus very intently on 2 aspects of balanced literacy, and that is all year, and that was guided reading and running records. That was our main focus last year. This year, we've upgraded balanced literacy to the Balanced Literacy Framework 2.0. It has the same 5 components in the previous balanced literacy model, but this year with a more intentional, a deeper focus on foundational skills, as well as on the use of complex text. And so all schools are engaged in the balanced literacy work. And so while we have 27 schools engaged in these pilots, they're also engaged in the balanced literacy work. So there's structured phonics occurring in all of these schools, all of our schools, complex text. All schools are using the ELA scope and sequence, the culminating task, and IFL units. All of the schools have literacy teacher development specialists to help build the capacity of teachers. All of the literacy teacher development specialists are participating in the literacy partnership, and that's where their capacity is built. All of the schools participate in the ELA curriculum instruction update meetings. And so the three literacy pilots that we're going to share tonight are the K-1, kindergarten, first grade balanced literacy pilot. You're also going to hear about the core knowledge language arts, or CKLA pilot. And last but not least, the reading recovery side-by-side coaching model. And so the way that we're going to share, you're going to first hear from a central office staff who is leading a particular pilot, and then most importantly, you're going to hear from school-based staff. You're going to hear from principals and teachers, and you're going to hear from reading recovery teacher. You're going to hear from an LTDS, and they're going to share with you what the implementation of these literacy pilots looks like in their schools. So with that, I'm going to ask the first group to come up, and that would be the group that's going to speak to the balanced literacy pilot, and we're going to begin with Dr. Barbara Lashley, Director of Elementary Literacy. Dr. Lashley.
You can. Okay. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
This particular pilot is the K-1 Balanced Literacy Pilot, which focuses on, it actually is a research-based progression that uses foundational skills as well as building knowledge and vocabulary through very rigorous complex text as well as read-alouds through the lens of read-alouds. And this is very critical. The research has shown that that progression is very critical for the success of students having that access to words and to print, which will allow them to read more and more print as they progress along. One of the things, and of course, when we look at the partners, as was mentioned, we all have literacy partners. And so the partners that support this particular K-1 pilot is the Council of Great City Schools, partnering up with Student Achievement Partners. And they offer very much technical support, hands-on support to teachers. It's a touching teachers model where they touch teachers on a regular basis through a cycle of two cycles of professional development. And those particular cycles have already been completed. Another way that they support the schools is that they have the quarterly PD for teachers. They have also pilot leads in each of the K-1 pilot schools that help to serve as a liaison between the district and as well as the pilots to keep monitoring and to see how the pilot is being implemented. There are also office hours, and this allows schools to log in to talk to the partners so that if they have questions, clarifications, further professional development is done that way. Also, there are online courses that are actually offered to all. We offer those to all educators in the district in terms of keeping that whole model of focusing in on that systematic inclusion of foundational skills as well as the knowledge and building knowledge and vocabulary. Now, the next question might be asked is, how do we evaluate this pilot to make sure that, how are we going to evaluate? We've identified some key performance indicators that, some key indicators that might help us. We continue with the weekly phonics assessment. The research shows that any structured phonics program has to have within 5 days, a research-based or a weekly assessment that follows that progression that has been taught. That's one way of keeping track of how our students are doing. We also use running records. The text level assessments are still being administered because we hope that we'll be able to look at the text level assessment results from the beginning of the year and then definitely at the end of the year to see if there's any movement or change based upon that foundational skill work that has been done in the interim. We also use the quarterly learning walks where those take place. We'll have one coming up soon in December. That is where we all go out. We take a look in the classrooms. We look at what teachers need, and it definitely informs the professional development to come. We also are still using the FAST bridge, which is the universal screener for K-1 that was already existing in the district. And so we'll be looking at all of these data points to make decisions as to how well this is being implemented. These are our schools that are involved in the K-1 Balance Pilot program. As a matter of fact, we're going to call one up now. Whitsett is here to share their success in the implementation of this K-1 pilot.
Hello, I'm Brandy Harden. I'm a first grade teacher at Whitsett Elementary, and I'm also our phonics pilot lead at Whitsett. We began the phonics pilot at Whitsett because we were looking for something to reach those students who were falling in the cracks. They got the letter recognition, then they were sent to guided reading, and they didn't see the connection. They didn't know how to decode. So when we got to the pilot, we were really excited about having a systematic program that taught us how to really give intentional instruction to those students on phonics. And since doing that, we've seen huge growth in our students' decoding skills. Students are able to gain fluency more quickly and are willing to take risks when reading. The students' writing has greatly improved because they feel comfortable taking risks and being independent writers. Whitsett students are showing more understanding of how words work in terms of sounds and decoding while reading. Understanding how words work leads to students being more confident readers and writers. They're more willing to take risks and use productive struggle to find their way through words. Most importantly, students feel empowered by their knowledge of words and phonics through the program.
Good evening. My name is Justin Uppinghouse, and I'm the principal at Whitsett, and I am also speaking about the impact that we've seen with the Balanced Literacy 2.0 framework pilot. So first, I wanted to reiterate what Ms. Harden said, that when we were offered the opportunity to participate in this pilot, we saw that there was a group of students who were still missing the connection between letters and words, sentences, and text. And so we really wanted to place a focus on those students so they could make those gains in the primary grade levels and then be ordered to continue to access text as they get older and the text becomes more complex. So that was a big gain for our students that we're seeing now because they are able to have that confidence in their writing. Even though it may be a simple sentence or a couple sentence paragraph, they're able to remember what they've learned in that phonics piece or in their spelling word work and use that in their writing. So it's really exciting to see them grow as writers. For the complex text and read-alouds, first we want to state that we've really seen the impact in capacity building of our instructors, and also want to make sure that it's known that the fact that it happens in the planning, and we've been able to really see that a high level of planning is necessary in order to give students and teachers the understandings of what a complex text is. And really just being able to pre-read, identify what's complex and what isn't, and placing that in front of the students. So the mission that we have is placing a complex text in front of all students and giving them access to text. We're also building the capacity in teachers to ask high-quality questions, and that can't really happen without a complex text. If there's not a great theme or a great, a great text in front of them, it's very hard to ask great questions to have conversation with students. And so being able to do that and ask a question that's going to lead to student conversation, student voice, is going to improve the literacy of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And so they have the opportunity to do that with the great text in front of them. Also, in planning, with the population that we have of students having a high EL population, it's great for our teachers to focus on that area when it comes to a high level of difficult vocabulary, language that they're going to see, whether it be figurative language that they may not understand as a new incoming student to English, or just improving their vocabulary and building that background knowledge. So teachers see in the planning part, we really are going to have to introduce this early to students because they may not get that just in the pre-read or in the read aloud. So we're going to want to place the vocabulary in front of them, explain what some of these phrases may mean, and really build that understanding so students can, again, have access to the text. Also, it offers teachers the opportunity to have their students have a voice. A lot of times we hear about teacher voice in the classroom being much greater than the student voice, and through asking great questions and leading a conversation, our students are now able to talk to one another, listen to one another, and then build off of the ideas that we're seeing. And that really does all happen through a great text and the balanced literacy approach. And then finally, we've seen a positive impact in our older students, our upper elementary riders, through hearing what others have to say and getting a better understanding from what their peers say. It gives them a chance to take that and use that in their writing to, when they're having an opinion, to hear from where they figured that out in the text, or make their evidence known by saying on page X or in this passage it states, and really using evidence to support their answers to where it's not just an opinion. They can now show where they've gotten that answer and gotten that understanding and better utilize and better get their points across in writing. So we've seen a tremendous amount of impact by using this balanced literacy approach. We're very excited to be a part of it. And through the building of the foundational piece with complex text, we've really seen students make gains in their writing and their reading and their listening and speaking. So thank you for the opportunity to present, and appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Justin, Brandy, and Barbara. And so at this time, we will hear from Dr. Lisa Kuhn. She is the coordinator for professional development for the innovation schools, and we'll hear from staff from Napier and from Churchwell Elementary. So if you guys want to come up and get ready, that'll be great.
So I want to talk about core knowledge, language arts, our curriculum pilot, and our journey to get there. We, as innovation schools, have several barriers to success, and we really wanted to start the beginning of the year with a deep dive needs assessment to look at what those barriers were to helping us improve our instruction. And as we started speaking with teachers and talking with teachers across our 5 innovation schools, 3 of those schools really spoke to the struggle that the teachers were having with planning in the balanced literacy framework. They were spending 10 to 12 hours a week trying to figure out how to put all those pieces together to focus on the what of teaching. And they were expressing some significant exhaustion, some struggles on how to get past the what to really looking at how are students learning in my classroom. How am I doing the questioning? How am I working with that complex text? Because they were spending so much time putting those things together. So we researched several curriculums and really looked at a curriculum that was aligned to the state standards, that really had a scripted component that allowed them to put the what's of the balanced literacy together so they could focus on the how, that had an alignment of really strong, high-quality text. And CKLA was one of the strongest rated curriculums. It has been aligned to the standards. It is, I know that in the past we had adopted core knowledge, and this is a different CKLA. It has been aligned to our new state standards. It focuses on rigorous text, and it has 2 deep strands. The strands for CKLA focus on knowledge, and they focus on skills. And the knowledge strand really focuses on building that meaning around high-quality, deep, and rigorous texts. And then they have another strand, the skills strand, that really takes the 44 sounds and 207 sound symbol combinations and very systematically puts those into a curriculum so that teachers don't have to think about which sounds I teach when. It tells them that process and that progression to help them build those sound symbol combinations and then apply them to text on a daily basis. So those are the 2 pieces, and schools in this pilot were able to think about whether this was the right approach and whether I would just do the knowledge strand, or I would do the knowledge and skills, or I would do the skills, or how I would put those 2 strands together. And our 3 schools at the innovation schools did select to do knowledge and skills simultaneously. So in the knowledge strand, we really focus on those texts, and those texts are organized around making meaning and focusing on the meaning making, the vocabulary development, the conversations are are all scripted inside those texts. And teachers are able to really focus on how the questioning are engaging students, how students are having conversations around the knowledge they're learning from the text, how they're developing that understanding, and they express that new knowledge through writing. So it connects those balanced literacy framework, not only that interactive read aloud, that knowledge building and those pieces, but it also pulls it through to writing for our teachers and helps them see how to sequence those pieces. And then the skills strand focuses on that sound and how do we build sounds to symbols and how we teach kids basic codes and then how we move our children from basic codes to advanced codes. But the bonus on the skills is it always connects every lesson to text. So students aren't learning isolated phonics or isolated foundational skills. Every day they are connecting that to decodable text and they're connecting it to reading. So it's not a separate skill for students. They understand that skills development actually helps them read. So those two strands have really been woven together in our schools. Our teachers launched this in October in our 3 innovation schools, and TNTP has been contracted to provide monthly site-specific professional development to our teachers, to our LTDSs and our principals, and then our office also provides additional support to teachers and leaders on a weekly basis. Because this is a pilot and we want to ensure that it is making instruction more effective for our students and that our students are learning how to read and are making meaning from what they're doing in class, we are using the NWEA MAP-R as a baseline in the fall, and then our final growth will be measured from our spring results. We are also using the MNPS scope and sequence culminating tasks at the end of every quarter to make sure our students are progressing the way students in all the other elementary schools, our TN Ready results, and then our text level assessment. So all of those pieces will help inform us on whether or not this pilot is really making movement and growth in our innovation schools. Buena Vista, Churchwell, and Napier are supported through our innovation office, and then 2 additional schools, Paragon Mills and Cumberland Elementary, are participating in the CKLA pilot, and they are being supported by curriculum and instruction. And I have the awesome, exciting pleasure to introduce Napier Elementary and their fabulous leadership and teaching team. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lawless.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As she said, my name is Dr. Watisha Lawless, and I'm so excited. I'm the principal at Napier Elementary School, and I'm excited to talk to you about the impact that CKLA has had at our school. We've seen an immediate impact. Honestly, we believe it's a game changer for us. As you know, as Dr. Joseph said, reading is a civil right, but for us, making sure our students have literacy skills is a matter of life or death, and that's how we see it. And so there's a sense of urgency for us. And so we were looking for something that we could implement that will provide our students with the skills to succeed. And we believe that CKLA has done that for us. We decided to implement the knowledge building component for our students, and our students are not only exposed to complex text and complex ideas, but they are engaged and they're thinking and they're building problem-solving skills. And we've seen immediate impact in our scores. According to MAP, well, last spring, 4% of our students scored on track or mastered according to 10 Ready. Now already, according to our MAP scores, we've doubled that amount of students who are scoring in the above average or high percentile. And then a lot of our students have made the big lift, and they've jumped 20 points on their RIT scores, according to MAP. And one of the biggest impact is self-efficacy. Our students know that they can do it, and then more importantly, our teachers believe that they can do it. And when I did my observation of one of the first lessons taught for CKLA, I got goosebumps and a little teary-eyed. I'm trying not to now. I ran out to call Dr. Coons, and ironically, she was in the building already. But it just spoke to the potential of our children. It showed me what I'd already known. They can do this. They were talking about the components that develop a civilization, and they were talking about it fluently, and they were engaged. And it wasn't a matter of that they had been exposed to it. It was a matter of that they could understand it, and they understood the vocabulary, and they could speak about it. And so CKLA for us is something that's going to fill the gaps for them and just show them what they can do and allow them to dream big and not just settle. Because a lot of people look at our students as those who cannot. but this program is showing them that they can and the powers to be that they can. So I have two of my superheroes here with me to talk about the implementation of CKLA in the classrooms, but I also want to thank my other Napier family for coming out to support. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Karen Bryan, and it's a pleasure to stand before you this evening. I am part of the awesome team at Napier Elementary School, and I'm very, very proud to be part of that team. We're doing great things there. I want to talk about student engagement with CKLA. The content of the lessons that we teach them, the content is real and relevant to them. Therefore, they're very, very engaged. And the structure and design of the lessons and the pacing affords the students opportunities to interact throughout the lessons. So they are always on point, they're always engaged, giving feedback, turning and talking to one another, and that makes it exciting for them. Also, the digital components are colorful and developmentally appropriate for first grade students. That's what I teach first grade. And they understand and enjoy what they are learning. The lessons cause students to analyze the content in such a way that is relevant and real. And because of that, the retention is inevitable for this content. The students are caused to think on a deeper level, and that's something I really do appreciate with CKLA. They practice their Tier 2 vocabulary, but they're also being introduced to Tier 3 vocabulary that they never even thought about. So the concepts that we're introducing to them are exciting concepts and ideas that they have not been introduced to before. With CKLA instruction, I believe our first grade students in training are learning those metacognition skills that will afford them an opportunity to be successful in future grades. And I have Ms. Galbraith, our second grade teacher, and she's going to come and share some of her thoughts with you.
Hello, good evening. And I want to thank you for allowing Napier to be along with this pilot. As a teacher of 9 years, this has been a complete game changer. I'm not spending hours of planning anymore. It's all aligned. It's all right there. My students are actively engaged. They're so excited when I just mentioned CKLA. They're using words like irrigation canals. They're talking about receding of water. They're talking about ancient civilizations. And they're able to discuss this and apply this to real-life situations now. My students have increased their vocabulary and are making real-life connections. They can recall facts and explain all the importance. They can describe what comprises and makes up a civilization: jobs, religion, trade, and government. When you walk into my classroom, and I hope that someday you'll have that opportunity, you'll be able to see how engaged and excited these children are. And that is what just makes me excited again as a teacher, to see that these kids can do it and that we're empowering them to do it. And we believe in them. So thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Marseille Taylor. I am the principal of Robert Churchwell Museum Magnet Elementary School, and I sound like I'm getting ready to echo Napier, so they've said a lot of things that I was going to say. But we had an opportunity to have several superintendents in our building from across the state, and they commented on how excited and engaged students were while reading that complex text. They stated that the text students were listening to and reading, they could talk about it knowledgeably. It was seamless for students. And they were able to hold that conversation over a long period of time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the teacher impact. CKLA simplifies planning and it enhances instruction. Teachers are really focused now on delivering of instruction. It's seamless and it's fluent. Teachers are working smarter on the instruction and spending less time working harder on putting resources together. CKLA builds a strong foundation of knowledge. Since teachers have been using the CKLA curriculum, they have a better understanding on how to get students to think more critically around complex texts. When I'm in classrooms, I see teachers providing students with knowledge and vocabulary around the core subject, because CKLA specifically maps out what students should know through building their knowledge and vocabulary first. Teachers are sharing their stories of how amazed at the depth of knowledge and the use of the vocabulary that students are being exposed to, as well as the rich, rich, rich conversations students are having in classroom as they turn and talk to each other. Lastly, CKLA is systematic. Teachers have also expressed that the CKLA content is organized in a coherent and a logical ordered manner to maximize teaching and learning time. So thank you so much. And next I'm going to introduce Ms. LaShonda Churchwell, who's my right arm, my left arm. We've been doing CKLA probably for maybe a month, and she's a guru already. So thank you for this opportunity.
I thank you for this opportunity. As she said, I am LaShonda Churchwell, and I'm the LTDS Robert Churchwell. And this is my 16th year in education, but my first year as an LTDS, and I feel successful. I do feel like I have a cape on because I'm able to support. I feel like a superhero that can swoop in and save lives, and I feel like I am saving lives every day, but I know we're on the front line. The teachers are on the front line, but the students, they are impacted with CKLA. As I walk into the classroom, I see hands raised. They want to answer questions, and the answers are correct. They're hearing words that are beyond what we could even think that they could comprehend. Going into a first grade classroom, and again, hands are raised. They're turning and talking. They're able to talk about what they're learning. And it's not just simple things. They're learning about the human body. We've gone into the human body. We've broken it down. I even learned some things. I was super excited, and the kids were too. As you go in, you can hear them talk. You don't have to start them to talking. The teacher is the facilitator. They step back, and they give them one cue, and they start talking. You're traveling. You're going into the ancient civilizations. You're going into the Middle Ages. Our children are going so much further than they ever gone or may ever go, but they're being exposed to texts that will take them so much further. If you walk up to them and ask them about something, they're able to talk about it now. And that's the difference. That's what I'm saying. And I'm a cheerleader for teachers, but I go hard for those students. That's my passion. And when I see an impact being made on the students, that's the biggest difference. Thank you so much.
So thank you to the CKLA team from Napier and from Churchwell Elementary. So last but not least, we are going to share with you about the Reading Recovery Side-by-Side coaching model. And so joining us tonight will be Dr. Tammy Lipsey, who's the Director of Interventions. And just want to say that she's struggling a little bit with her voice. And so Marissa Hicks, who is a Reading Recovery District Lead Teacher, will be joining her at the podium.
I'm going to turn it over to Marissa. This is what I have left today.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We were talking about our reading recovery side-by-side model, and just to begin, what we want to let you know what gives reading recovery teachers this knowledge, and that is the 135 hours they spent in their training year learning about literacy, early literacy experiences and processes, and especially how what they do and what they say can impact how a student learns to read, their self-efficacy, and everything like that. So to begin with that, they come to the table with that, and so we want to be able to share that with other teachers and help them grow their own capacity. So this model is real world, it's collaborative, and it's in the moment. So a teacher would sit side by side with a classroom teacher who's teaching their lowest group to read, or however that works out with the building. These are literacy teams making these decisions in these buildings, what teachers will be impacted, who needs the most help, who has the lowest students, things that are being made with the literacy team, and it can be flexible with what the needs of the school is or the team, the first grade team. They sit side by side with their teacher, and that teacher is teaching. It begins with a debrief of what might be going on, looking at data with a running record, looking at what children are struggling with and what teaching points can be most impactful for those students, a conversation between that teacher and a shared planning experience, and then a reading recovery teacher can model what that might look like. A trouble that a teacher is having, I just can't get my students to, and how do I do that? How do I get them to do that thing that I want to do? And that reading recovery teacher will come in, and those procedures will help them move these students. And sometimes you hear teachers gasp beside you because this thing they thought they couldn't do, suddenly these children are doing, because a nuance not necessarily a theory that a teacher did not understand before or did understand and learned about before, but in practice, it doesn't always look like the theory. And when you can see it right next to yourself, it really can be impactful for the student. So real world, in the moment, and they're right there to help guide in those trouble spots, those really struggling readers that really need that impactful help. It helps teachers problem solve, hone their techniques, build language and practice that's most beneficial for students. And basically what we're trying to do is help teachers in the classrooms find solutions for those struggling readers. And that's what this can do, real time, in the moment, side by side. So again, it begins with a close examination of the data and then follows through with that coaching cycle over and over, because you might say something to a teacher, that child really needs to have their finger in and point word to word right now because it's early learning, right? And then later on, you'll have a teacher who still has a child pointing, and now they don't need that. But because whenever they were given that professional development, they heard that has not changed. And this allows teachers to collaborate about change over time that's needed in literacy instruction. And so often our PDs can't cover that in the moment of when it's happening for teachers to really solidify that learning for them. So it's an opportunity to share strategies, to share models, to debrief, to collaborate. And we know as adults, we learn by talking. And so it gives teachers that collaborative planning time to really get in there and talk together and solve the problems of their schools, especially for those struggling readers. And so how will we determine success for this? We have a pre and post teacher survey. What did you know before and what do you know after? We use running records, so that also is a honing of skills of running records for teachers that are new to buildings. It offers that opportunity. They may not have gotten it here or enough or as much as somebody else, so here's an opportunity for a teacher to work one-on-one with them. We're going to use text level assessments, which are already being done in the district, to see what kind of impact. And they also keep a coaching log. What have they discussed with the teachers? What things do they see across the grade levels that they can really help with if they collaborated on a PD and delivered it to the whole grade level? What do they need? And so really they can meet the needs of the teachers right there for that early literacy learning, K2. Oh, and these are the schools that we are currently working in. Alex Green, and how many teachers, in parentheses, you'll see how many teachers are coaching in each of those schools side by side in a collaborative way. And I will hand that over to Ms. Coates.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to be here to share Cumberland's journey with you. I feel like I'm a bridge because we are implementing CKLA and very excited about it. And we are also part of the side-by-side read and recovery. I just wanted to just weigh in on that CKLA. I'm not where these wonderful schools are at because we have just begun. In fact, I spent all day long today in training with my kindergarten, first and second grade teachers, and I'm going to share with you just how excited they are. We are required now with these revised Tennessee state standards to come different. You know, we've got to approach this work and have a different kind of impact on what we're doing in the classrooms, and that's not an easy shift to make. Teachers have to learn a whole new way. It's an entirely new paradigm shift that's required. And so we are using CKLA as that curricular vehicle to make those paradigm shifts. Knowledge, the units, the lessons give us the complex text. We don't have to search for it. The amount of time that teachers take just searching for text and then exploring with their new understanding of quantitative and complex and qualitative complexity, they're looking at text like, okay, is this one complex? I don't know. You know, we don't have to do that anymore because CKLA has now provided us with text that we know is rich and high quality. And the way the units are designed for 1 2 to 3 week period of time, you've got 4 or 5 related texts that they can discuss. That there's a thread that goes through all 4 or 5 texts. And then within each grade level, there are about 12, anywhere between 10 and 12 different units. So that's a lot of rich material. And so this material allows us to make that shift that's required by new standards, the knowledge shift, the text complexity shift, and then that text-focused question, answer, conversation. What we want to see in our classrooms, student engagement, students discussing, debating, arguing, respectfully about text, and teachers facilitating thinking. We want proof of cognitive engagement, and we can't do that without rich material. So we're pretty excited. We're pretty excited about CKLA, and we are, in fact, adopting both the skill strand, which brings us that comprehensive, systematic word work piece, and the decodables, and also the listening and learn, or the knowledge strand, that brings us the rich material whereby we get to the RI, RL, speaking, listening, and writing standards. So we're just excited. Here, I copied this down today, so take a listen. Here's a second grade teacher. I'm a 29-year veteran. I was concerned, I'm old school. And so I was concerned about this new approach. And will I have support? Everything I've heard today, I'm so excited. I feel as though I can do this. Here's another teacher, brand new, but she rocks. Brand new teacher, though. She said, this is so exciting. Anyone can be a teacher, but everyone can't do it well. I can still put my mark on it. It takes a strategic brain to do this well. And last teacher, another teacher she was with us last year, she just knocked it out of the park. So she was very moved by the amount of knowledge you have to have. You have to really do deep research in order to get to teach a good lesson, and it's provided through CKLA. She said, still blown away by that knowledge shift. So now that I understand just what it is and all that it requires, I am particularly excited about implementing. So that's us and CKLA. We can't wait to get started. We are also we have reading recovery, and we're so excited by it, and really thrilled that we have this new model. And the model this year is not just the reading recovery teachers working with their 4 children and a group, but helping to build the capacity of our teachers. And all I'll say before I pass it over is that we have teachers saying, well, what about me? Well, what about me? What about me? What about, There's a little bit of arguing, but we're taking care of it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, almost good night. I don't know how y'all do this for hours and hours, thank you. My name is Sharon Osborne, and I will either make you laugh, cry, or both. I guess I want to start by talking from my heart, and that's the best way I can communicate. 4 years ago, I was given the privilege to interview for a reading recovery position. And through my training in undergrad at Tennessee State University with Dr. Lipsey, she ingrained that love of literacy in me. As a young child, I was a struggling reader. We learned by decoding. We learned by doing things that are what we would consider unconventional today. And when my children started school, I have twins that are 18. Yes, I know I don't look that old. But I was blown away at the atmosphere and how instruction had changed that amount of time that had passed. And so I was early in my career, in my 4th year of teaching, and I struggled. Was I ready to leave the classroom? And I took that leap of faith. And it is the best thing I have ever done for myself and for the children that I serve. There is nothing greater than to watch a child that can write his or her name but cannot tell you those letters. there's nothing greater than watching a child that has no clue of how to even hold a book prior to the 20 weeks graduate my program. So I have, how many days, Marissa? 100 and what days? I went through I have my master's in EL, and I'm not a spring chicken, so, you know, I'm a Leo the late bloomer, if anyone knows that story. I went and got my master's and then returned back to school to study for reading recovery. And it was the most intense learning of my career. But I am blessed to say that I was able to have that intense learning, because not only can I take it and teach my children, the children that I touch, the children that I get to serve, the parents that I get to change their mindset that their children can learn. And yes, I do believe that every child can learn. Now the side-by-side coaching model allows me to share my theory, to strengthen the theory of the classroom teacher, to support their theory and grow their knowledge. I had a teacher every day at about 3:20. Can I talk to you for a second? Yes, hurry, I'm trying to plan and I have a family. Yes, what do you need? Can we talk about this running record? Yes, let's talk about this running record. Next day, Sharon. I'm like, Bree, what is it now? You know, hungry. She wanted more. And guess what? I sat by her side by side every day. And I teach with her side by side every day. And one day she looked at me with like deer in headlight eyes, like, what do I do? And I said, do you need me to step in? And she was like, yes. So she has this stool about this big around, and she's about this big around. And she scoots over, and if you could see me from behind the podium, I'm not a little girl. So I have the majority of the stool, and I get a shift out of the child, and she hits me. Not with like a love tap, and she said, how? Why didn't I know that? And so me telling her every afternoon when she knocked on my door wasn't good enough. She now sees it. She sees it in real time. She gets to experience that shift, and then she gets to try it the next day. And so we take time every afternoon, whether it be on our own time or running up the hallway to pick up our group of children to talk. Where do we need to go tomorrow? What do you think went well with that lesson? Where do you think we need to, who do you think we need to serve next to build capacity and to build her knowledge? I am fortunate enough to serve 2 teachers this year. I would like to read just a quick snippet of what Bree wrote. In the short amount of time I've worked with Sharon, I've seen a huge difference in my approach to guided reading. I am more confident and more knowledgeable. I have learned so much by watching her rather than her just having her tell me. There's so many small techniques or strategies I have watched Sharon do in action that I would not have seen in PD or in an afternoon conversation. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to grow and truly work collaboratively with my peers. Having an opportunity like Sharon provides a safe place for me to take risks and ask questions without fear of judgment and observation. Thank you for allowing me to share.
So much to the Reading Recovery Side-by-Side Model team. And so at this time, before we open it up for any comments and questions you have, I am, Dr. Joseph, going to ask the team to come on up because as there may be questions that you will want to respond to, so come on up. And as they're coming up, just want to share next steps with the literacy pilots. And so with regard to the balanced literacy pilot, immediate next steps are certainly to continue the pilot. There's conversation now about extending to grade 2. With regards to the CKLA pilot, the newest pilot that we're implementing this year, we first and foremost want to ensure that schools and teachers have the supplies and supports and resources they need so that they can implement with fidelity. Again, as you could hear from the schools, there's great interest in continuing the pilots in the current schools. And last but not least, the reading recovery side-by-side coaching model. A next step that we're considering is how do we expand the pilot. So with that, certainly hope that the information shared today this evening has been enlightening, and that you enjoyed what I thought was the very best part, and that is hearing from the schools. And so we want to open the floor up for any questions and comments you may have. Come on, a little closer. They won't bite.
Have any questions?
All right. Come on.
I'm sorry.
I do, but I want to give everybody other people.
I do have a couple questions. I'm assuming that we heard this in-depth presentation because of the funding. Are we at risk of funding maybe not being adequate for any of these pilots?
No, we're okay with the pilots right now. Thank you for approving. You approved tonight some materials that are needed for the final CKLA pilot, so we'll be fine there. But I do think one of the things we've talked about is, trying to figure out how do you scale anything, right? We have 33 or 30 some odd schools that are piloting. We need to know what's working and what's going to get us the most accelerated growth. So as we think about future budgets, where do we put our investments as we continue with literacy growth? So it's, we hear a lot about teachers and their concerns with planning, and it seems as though, at least at CKLA is helping with that. So, is that enough to make an investment in this budget to move on with X amount of schools? It's multi-million dollars to just change your books, but how do you do that over time if it's something that's positive and it's connected? Same thing with as we think about the side-by-side reading recovery. I mean, that you're talking about adding a person in each building to do that, and how many people can you add and scale it over time in your budget. So those are the things that are worthy conversations once we get the results and see if there's something that's growing. So
That's the next thing. When are we set to see some results from these pilots? Because I know with education, you can't expect to see something after a month or two or even a semester or two. But are we looking for, 2-year growth or 2-year assessment, or are we going to do quarterly? Just how?
yeah, well, we'll evaluate. Definitely by the end of the year, we should have a report on how things went over the course of the year. There were a number of different measures that were identified. So, the running records and the text level assessments and things like that, they're done quarterly. We had the MAP-R assessment for some. Those are done 3 times a year, so we'll pay particular attention to what's happening in those schools, paying attention to the RIT scores and things, so we can have some anecdotal information along the way, but we'll get a full report by the end of the year as we move forward.
Is there any goal for these schools? Because I'm looking at some of these schools, and some of them were at least on the target list for these pilots. Is there a goal for how much they should have grown on 10 Ready? Because that seems to be the marker that everybody across the state is for sure, watching us by or monitoring us by. So do we have like a benchmark that we're hoping to reach?
And I'll turn it over to Dr. Coons to give a response to the innovation school targets and the priority schools, because I do know we do set, they in particular need accelerated growth because they're behind the 8 ball.
So we used legislature dollars that were given to us to do the pilot, and we set very specific targets for that grant that we received. First, we set map our results and moving 80% of our students within the quintile or the band that they are in to the next band. So that will help us measure growth with the CKLA pilot for the end of the year. Our TN Ready results are set by ESSA and the priority labeling system, and our growth goals are to be in the 15th percentile in 1 year in the ranking of schools to remove their priority status label. So that's a pretty ambitious growth goal for us, but that is the goal for all of our schools in the CKLA pilot.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Ms. Pierce?
Thank you all. I know it's late. You've got to get up and do this again tomorrow. I mean, not this, but do your real work that you just described. I did have a question, maybe for Dr. Felder, on this. I know on reading recovery, that is typically, I mean, that is the side-by-side, so we are using that, but in practice, it's typically been for the children who are struggling. Are the CKLA and balanced literacy, is that just like all instruction? Is there a difference, I mean, in how you're using a CKLA and balanced literacy, just like your total instruction for all ELA, but reading recovery is more of the side-by-side coaching, specifically helping children who are struggling?
So the reading recovery is an intervention.
Right.
And so it would be expected, say at the schools that are implementing CKLA, that a student who would qualify for reading recovery service would, as their core instruction, be engaged in that CKLA work and also receive their reading recovery work. So
Right, that would be like at Cumberland, that's in Paragon Mills, who are doing both. But just so in the other schools, though, for Whitsitt or Buena Vista, they are...
Same, yes.
Okay.
So, yes, same thing.
Anybody else? Ms. Spear?
First of all, I just want to say how much I enjoyed all of your presentations because not only were they filled with great information, but I especially love hearing your work with children and your work with teachers. That is very touching and heartwarming. I've got like 4 questions, but with the MAP-R, let's go back to that since we just talked about it. Is the MAP-R assessing comprehension of a text? Is the MAP-R assessing phonics skills? I've never seen the MAP-R, so I'm a little confused about what it looks like and how we use it to, and Paul Changus is standing up as well.
I'll have a stab at it. MAP-R is, when you talk about literacy, it's measuring ELA. It's measuring the understanding or mastery of a standard. So RI, RL standards. A score will, it adjusts as the student is taking the test. So here's how here's why reading level matters. If a student, say, is at 4th grade and they're taking the test, if they are not able to read the text at that 4th grade level, the test will, after a couple of, several wrong responses, it will move them down. And they will have to take the test at a 3rd grade level. Still can't do that, it'll move them down again. So when you get so the child never necessarily feels, well, I've failed, I can't do this. But the result will show you maybe they got everything right, but they weren't able to get everything right until it got down to a 2nd grade level, that kind of a thing. So it's measuring mastery of the standard, but it's also measuring the ability to read at grade level.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good summation. Comprehension is part of what's being assessed. We're not going to get into the phonics on the assessment, but we're going to get into a number of other areas. And again, it depends on where that child is in terms of their grade level mastery of standards. But it is an online assessment that's adaptive, and again, it focuses in on that child's skill levels and standards.
But it's a text, and the student reads a passage from a text and then answers questions?
It can be a text. There may be questions and answers along the way with simple sentences or understanding vocabulary and so forth. But there are a variety of different formats, but reading passages is part of it.
Thank you.
And we can provide some specific sample items if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come to your office to see it because
We'll distribute.
Really
We've got some materials we
this.
can make available to each board member that kind of give some examples of the standards that are covered in these assessments.
And I'm sure we can contact NWEA and give a board member an access to actually take the test and just experience it themselves.
Oh, that might be
just
scary.
to see where you are. We won't tell the scores.
Okay, good.
And Paul, while you're up there, you might be helpful to answer this next question. Because we have some of our schools, like Paragon Mills is in all 3 pilots. And they also, I suspect, have literacy partnership. How will we differentiate, to Dr. Joseph's point, this will impact our budget. So how will we differentiate which of the pilots or programs that are already in existence is making the biggest impact?
Well, yeah, and I know we've had some of this conversation before. There are some challenges with the number of schools involved in multiple pilots, but we will be looking at not just an individual school, we'll be looking at a group of schools involved in each of these initiatives and looking at the average scores for those schools relative to comparison schools, or in some cases, such as with the work that's being done in the PELP schools to look at CKLA, we're going to be looking at students that are comparisons. They may come from different schools, but they have comparable backgrounds, comparable prior achievement, and we'll be matching them student per student in their prior achievement, and then looking at the growth that occurs over time. As Dr. Joseph said, we will start reporting out this school year, but to really know how and some of this year is going to be part of it's learning what works in the classroom, getting the best practices in place. But over sustained time, we will look at the impact. Where we've got schools involved in multiple measures, they'll be in multiple comparison groups. We would hope that there's a combined impact when they're involved in multiple initiatives, but we don't know that for sure. And it may be that part of our work this year is the challenge of finding out what we can manage in our buildings in a over the course of the year. And maybe we're biting off too much in some of those schools, but we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis. But ideally, we'll see growth in all of these schools that's greater than they've traditionally made and that their comparison schools are making. But we'll take each initiative separately in this process.
And will that be reported during the summer?
Yeah, we will. Some of this, obviously, the map data we'll have available to us earlier, and by the summer we'll be able to report out on that. We all want to see how we're going to do on these state assessments. That's something we're held accountable for. That'll come a little bit later, probably. We hope now that the standards have been implemented by the state that we will get results sometime over the summer. As you know, we're always interested, are these effects sustainable over time? And this year, we're getting some initial data on these, but it'll be another year later before we really feel comfortable about the evaluation process.
Thank you. And Monique, I want to address this to you, but if you want someone else to answer it, please feel free. I know that we have been working with our literacy collaborative partnership with Vanderbilt and several people in Metro and throughout the community. How do these pilots correlate with our literacy work and that partnership?
So the Literacy Collaborative is designed to build the expertise of the literacy teacher development specialist. And so all of the literacy teacher development specialists in these schools and the other schools participating in these pilots are still participating in the Literacy Collaborative in an effort to build their expertise and so that that expertise can be leveraged at their schools. So it's still, part of that literacy work and building capacity of the LTDS so that they in turn can build the capacity of their teachers. I don't know if any of the schools want to speak, or Dr. Lashley, you want to speak more specifically?
Just to add to that, with the Literacy Collaborative, one of the things that we mentioned early on in the presentation is that there are some common threads that you probably picked up throughout all of the pilots, and that is that they're involved in complex text. They're involved in a systematic phonics instruction piece. And so what we do in the collaborative is that we make sure that we are honing in on those skills of, like, how do you perform, how do you train the LTDSs in an effective read aloud, which we heard that from CKLA. They use the complex text at that, as well as a K-1 pilot. So what we're doing is we're training, they practice that in the collaborative so that they can then go out and help teachers to become more proficient and more advanced in that pedagogy. So that's how we're impacting each of the pilots in their own right. So we're working on those continuous components.
I'm wondering if I'm calling this the right thing, Dr. Joseph. What's it called, a literacy collaborative? The group from Vanderbilt and what's it called? Partnership?
The Literacy Collaborative through the Nashville Public Education Foundation?
Not the one through the mayor's office, but the one that we
Call it a collaborative, but it's a literacy partnership and it's Lipscomb.
Oh, well, actually, I was thinking about the
literacy partnership through Lipscomb University?
No, I was thinking about the partnership that I don't know if you call it a partnership, but it's the work that we've been doing with the community. It's separate from the mayors. It's two groups.
So the literacy advisory, the literacy plan advisory.
Yes,
group.
And I know you're gonna present on that at some point. But how does
we are making wonderful progress. We just had a meeting last night. Yep, so another late night, but yes, indeed, hammering away. And so we are developing a comprehensive literacy plan for the district that aligns with the blueprint document, that aligns with all the work that we're doing in the district. So yes, we hope to be able to present on that soon. We do, we're still finalizing that document, and then we need to vet the document. So there's still work to be done, but we're moving along. Yes. So we anticipate by the spring we should have that document finalized. But it's a beautiful thing, and we're making good progress on it. Yeah.
Okay. And Dr. Joseph and I went on some school visits on, was that Monday?
Yeah.
Monday. Seems like it's been so long
Just
ago.
yesterday.
Just yesterday. And one of the things that I saw consistently, and we think about balanced literacy, and we think about balanced literacy being, integration of skills. Not just phonics, not just word study, not just particular strategies, but a balance of all of that. But when Dr. Joseph and I were out Monday, what we saw was such an emphasis on phonics that when teachers were working with the student at difficulty, consistently what they were prompting to was visual information, phonics. And I'm a proponent of phonics, but if we're talking about balanced literacy, it seems like there may be some unintended consequences if we go overboard on one system, one queuing system, rather than integration. Because we have in this district in the past had third graders who could read words, they could sound out any words you put in front of them, but when you asked them what they read, they were completely confused because there had been such a emphasis on phonics that the kids walked away with the belief that what is reading? Reading is sounding out words. Reading is calling words, and that is not at all what reading is. And I don't know if the group has really defined what is reading. Is it an integration? Is it one system? And so, when we think about decodable text, it looks like the ones that are higher level have more meaning and structure, but the ones at lower levels, like kindergarten or first grade, here's one. Pat and Ted had lunch with Meg's tots. Max got hash on his chin. Wes got hash on his bib. Tim's milk is on Tom. And that was a decodable text. Well, that's very difficult to understand. There's so many rhyming words in there. So I think I just want to caution us that as we have a phonics program, you and I went to Houston, and we saw excellent kids, excellent classrooms. Everybody was engaged, but they were reading books. And I just want us to keep that focus, that it's reading books, understanding an author's message that's going to make kids college and career ready.
Yeah, and I would say, we also saw kids in kindergarten, first grade talking about germination.
That's right.
And the other things. I think our goal is to balance. We're not encouraging to simply focus on phonics. There is that 40 in the pilots where they're focusing on foundational skills. We do know that they do have that 45 minutes of intense phonics instruction, but they're also given the opportunity to engage in text, and we're reporting, communicating that it is our expectation that we don't keep kids from being engaged with authentic text, because that's the way they understand making meaning. But the fact is, we have too many kids who do not have the foundational skills to be able to make meaning, and it's that balance. We've debated about phonics or whole or the middle. For the past 30, 40 years, it's gone back and forth. The pendulum continues to shift, and there's continuing a compelling argument on both sides. Our goal is to just make sure teachers have the resources within the buildings to give the kids what they need when they need it. But we want to make sure that we have a systemic approach to the foundational pieces, because with an unskilled teacher, without having the materials, kids will fall behind. And we're really concerned because we have kids whom, particularly with the number of English language learners that we have, the number of students who come from backgrounds where they don't have a lot of money, the concern with vocabulary development and acquisition is critical. So we want to make sure teachers have the resources to be able to put together a systemic program, and that's what was lacking, the systemic piece. We can't leave it to chance that a kid has a good teacher that knows how to pull the pieces together, because the teachers are overwhelmed, and we keep hearing that throughout the system. We've got to make sure that we make it easy for them, and what you just read seemed like that would be in a kindergarten or first grade, probably a kindergarten class. Just getting them, the basic the basic understanding of words and words make meaning, and you're going from right to left. You start pretty simplistic, but then as you progress, it gets much more advanced. But as long as that what you read didn't really bother me, as long as the kid also is being read to and they have more complex text to make meaning as we go through.
Well, I will just say that you actually can teach all those concepts about print in rich text as well. So I have a little problem with when I see text like that being given at kindergarten and in first grade. But I have a question, and maybe Dr. Lipsey can answer this question. Marissa, will the fact we have the literacy partnership with Lipscomb, will that help balance the emphasis on phonics? Because every school, is that right, has literacy partnership. And will that help the balance so that we don't get too far on one side and confuse kids about what reading really is?
Yes, the whole model of literacy partnership is around balanced literacy. Teaching all the components of balanced literacy.
And are there teachers in each of the schools that will share that with the classrooms?
Yes, the LTDS with rollouts will do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you all. It was a very in-depth, deep dive into literacy, so I really do appreciate your spending your night with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
We will move on to, she just left the room. Okay, we have a committee report from Capital Needs, and we'll come back to that. I do have a short board chair report. I got this out of the December 2017 American School Board Journal. The U.S. lags behind in developed world education spending, a theme that's been recurrent. Overall spending on elementary and high school education declined 3% from 2010 to 2014 in the U.S., while education spending in the world's developed countries on average rose 5% per student during the same period. The decline in the U.S. came as the economy grew and student enrollment increased by 1%, resulting in a 4% decrease in spending per student, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development analysis on education indicators. Data show that per pupil spending in some countries rose at a far higher rate. For example, between 2008 and 2014, education spending rose 76% in Turkey, 36% in Israel, 32% in the United Kingdom, and 27% in Portugal. Maybe we should have this printed and put on our foreheads when we go for, our budget visits. And that I thought was very telling. So we will start with announcements. Ms. Pierce?
Sorry, shoot, just went off my phone.
Sorry. I assume that.
Well, next Wednesday and Thursday evening at Weston Middle School, they will present their winter play called The Snow Queen. And so it'll be in the auditorium at Weston Middle, so I hope you'll go support our students.
I don't have any announcements. Ms. Pierce?
Thank you. The Maplewood Clinic at St. Thomas is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. They are planning to provide baby basic prenatal care education to Maplewood teen moms. They are working to connect clinics to the 8 Maplewood feeder schools, so that's exciting. And they are identifying speakers with St. Thomas Health who will speak on the various topics with the academies. They are providing physicals for the Maplewood athletes, and they also are participating in Maplewood Monday. Backpack Full of Cash documentary is scheduled to be shown on November the 29th at 6 o'clock at the Mayburn building at Vanderbilt University on Appleton Place. And our own Amy Frog is in that documentary. It's narrated by Matt Damon and explores the privatization movement of public schools that is starving public school of resources. So I've got two other announcements. The M3 Summit for the Northwest Quadrant for Males is on Saturday, December the 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 12:30 at IT Cresswell Middle School of the Arts. So people are invited to come and enjoy food and fellowship and fun. And then there will also be one later on for females. And then Ms. Frog asked me to make an announcement. She had to leave early to watch her child in a play. On December the 9th, Charlotte Park Elementary will host its annual Breakfast with Santa. The school will serve pancakes to the community that morning between 8:30 and 10:30, and this is a wonderful event that brings 250 to 350 community members to the school each year.
Thank you. Dr. Gentry, would you like to give a...
Yes, very briefly. We met earlier at the Capital Needs Committee to review the initial recommendation on what our ask would be to the mayor. We're sitting at about $368 million to cover projects that were deferred from previous budget year that did not get funded, plus ongoing maintenance needs. We will send out a notice of a follow-up meeting. Hopefully, all board members can be present so that we can review it again and then bring it to the board floor for a vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any answers?
I do.
Dr. Brown?
I'll try.
Okay.
In conjunction with the Disney Musicals in School program, Oliver Middle School and the Oliver Middle School Drama Boosters Club is proud to present The Little Mermaid, running from December the 7th through December 10th. Oliver has been a Disney school since 2014 and was chosen as Disney New York's pilot for Mary Poppins in 2015. And then they have now become a self-sustaining performance group. So since 2014, they've quadrupled their participation in the annual musicals and now have over 100 students performing in their current production. Students will be performing morning shows for Shane and Granbury Elementary School, and December the 7th and the 8th of December. And then they will perform evening performances on that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and afternoon of Sunday. They're able to provide a high quality production thanks to the many volunteers and the parents who come and help to make the show come to life on stage. Ms. Sharp and the drama students have also been invited to perform at Disney World in May of 2018. You may get tickets by going online to Oliver Middle School.
Mr. Gentry, any announcements? Okay. I have a short one. On Wednesday, November the 15th, I served as principal for a day at DuPont Hadley Middle School, shadowing Dr. Kevin Armstrong, and I discovered that they're a model middle school for the AVID program, and the AVID program teaches students how to take notes, and the AVID program teaches students to take Cornell notes. Never heard of that before. And actually, I spent the day at DuPont Hadley that day because that afternoon I spoke to 3 AVID classes, and it was a great day. And then I want to give the remaining of my colleagues here a huge thank you for the great report out we had with the mayor's office last week and her 2 educational advisors, Laura Moore being one of them. So we did update the mayor on and the viewing public on all the good work that's being done in our district. So Ms. Pierce?
Being there no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.